Harry Valentine?
No, it was myself, Harry Valentine, late Captain Musa Molo Balde, and some other soldiers.
Who were arrested and transferred to Mile 2, or you met some of them at Mile 2?
Some of them we were together at the cell in Yundum, and we were transferred the same day to Mile 2, and we were in the same cell at the remand wing, where Captain Mamadou Marong also joined us, and additional soldiers later on were also sent to the remand wing, and we were in the same cell. I think if my memory serves me well, we were 10 in number in that cell.
Can you tell us about the conditions of detention at Mile 2 remand wing?
Yeah, Mile 2 remand wing, they had bunk beds with the plywood and a blanket, only one blanket.
So let's get this straight. You said bunk beds, but you've explained that there was plywood. What was the plywood resting on?
The plywood was resting on, they built with the blocks.
So a concrete?
Yes, concrete, and then the plywood is on it. That's where you lie usually, with a blanket.
At that point, you said there were 10 of you. Was there enough space in the cell for all of you to sleep?
Yes, we had enough space, contrary to the other cells. And of course, in it you have the chamber pot. When you have to do your personal admin at night, you have to use the chamber pot. I must say, of course, it's contrary to military ethics for senior officers to share the same cell with junior officers, but that was the situation. We have no other option. Nonetheless, the junior officers also were very respectful, because they were the one taking, in the morning, they take out the chamber pots to empty them and wash them for us.
And what about the other conditions at Mile 2, in terms of the food, ventilation, for example? Were you allowed to go outside? Tell us about those.
Yes, we were allowed to go outside. In the morning at 8 o'clock, they will come and open the cell, and we were allowed to exercise. We will be from 8 to 12 outside. And then the lunch will come. After the lunch, we take our lunch and get back into the cell. Of course, the food was not as good as what we used to have at home, but the good thing is we were allowed provisions from our family members, like corned beef, sardines, biscuits, and name it, but no food from home.
And during that time, I'm still referring to, let's say, the first few days or the first week at Mile 2, were you given access to a lawyer?
We were not given access to a lawyer.
Were you at any point in, let's say, the first few weeks informed of the reason for your arrest?
We were never informed of the reason of our arrest.
Can you tell us for how long you were detained at Mile 2 remand wing?
We were detained, I was detained for 640 days at the remand wing with Harry Valentine, Captain Mamadou Marong. But some of the soldiers were released before us.
So roughly speaking, that would be under 2 years, let's say, but closer to
few months less
than 2 years.
2 years.
During that point, during that period of time, almost 2 years, were you charged at any point?
We were never charged.
Were you informed of the reason for your arrest?
We were not informed of the reason of our arrest.
Did you ever appear before a court of law?
Never appeared before any court of law.
At any point during that period, were you questioned?
1 year after, January 1996, we were taken to the NIA before a panel chaired by former CMC Pahabi Mumbai.
Can you tell us about that?
The panel at the NIA was a mixed services panel. The one I can remember vividly is the chairman, Pahabi Mumbai, CMC, and Chief Inspector Mambojang, who is now the paramount chief. The others were NIA officers, and most likely also some from the army. And during the interview, what they asked me is, what are my relationship with council members? And where was I the day they were arresting former Vice Chairman Sadibu Haidara and late Minister of Interior, no, former Vice Chairman Sana Sabali and late Interior Minister Sadibu Haidara. I told them the day of their arrest, I was at the police headquarters in my office. And what are your relationship with council members? I told them the council members, the soldiers, Lieutenant Singate, Sana Sabali, and the others, I never knew them before. But the chairman, Yaya Jame, he was my senior in the gendarmerie. And late Minister of Interior Sadibu Haidara was my junior in the gendarmerie, and we attended the course together in Turkey. That was what I knew about them.
Did they ask you any other questions as far as you recall?
I don't remember. Maybe they asked, but I don't remember the questions that followed. And after they asked me to write a statement, which I did and submitted to Mambojang.
But before that, still focusing on the types of questions you were asked, when they asked you those questions, where do you think they were going with that type of questioning?
The type of questions they were asking, they were trying to link me up with whatever they accused the Vice Chairman and the Minister of Interior.
That was
their intention.
That was your reading of the situation?
Yes, that was my reading of the situation.
But did they at any point tell you why?
They did not.
You said that you were asked to write a statement.
Mm-hmm.
Did you write your statement at the NIA that day?
Yes, I wrote it at the NIA that day and submitted it to Mambojang.
Do you recall if there was an independent witness present?
There was no independent witness, as far as I can recollect.
Can you tell us how that panel treated you during the time you spent at the NIA?
I must say they treated me with respect, to be quite honest.
Did anything happen to you while you were at the NIA?
Nothing happened to me while I was there.
So you said this event took place a year into your detention?
Yes.
And thereafter, presumably, you were sent back to Mile 2 Remand Wing, is that correct?
Yes, we were back to Remand Wing.
Let's focus a bit more on your family. During the time that you were at Mile 2, were you able to have family visits?
Yes, my elder brother used to visit me. He was the one bringing the provisions for me.
And how did it feel for you being at the Mile 2 Remand Wing for almost 2 years without being charged and not knowing what would happen to you, essentially?
Very frustrating.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Because normally if you arrest somebody, if not the same day, after 72 hours, you should be able to tell him or her the reason of his arrest and what you found him wanting for. But that never happened.
And you said after almost 2 years you were released. Please tell us about your release. How did that come about?
We were released, but few days before our release, we received a visit of the former Chief of Defense Staff, Colonel Babukar Jatta, and former Inspector General of Police, Mr. Juf, I think is Suleiman, Jibril Juf. What we noticed while we were in detention, when you see these two people visit the inmates or the detainees, either at the maximum security or at the remand wing, few days or some weeks after, you have imminent release of detainees. And that's what exactly happened after they left, after that visit. Few days after, Colonel Babukar Jatta came back, and that's how we were released on the 28th of October, 1996.
During those visits, including the one that finally led to your release, did they at any point tell you anything about either why you were there or what was expected of you if you were to be released?
No, they will never tell you why you were there. They will just say, we came to visit you and see how you are doing, and yeah.
Did your conditions of detention improve following their visits?
No, the conditions remains the same. The only thing is that you feel like people at least out there are thinking of you by their presence on that very day, and that's it.
After you were released, can you tell us about the impact that your detention had on you as well as your family?
Of course, it was a big relief. That was the day we were really all praying for, to at least regain our freedom and join our families and our loved ones and friends. I was really happy to be finally released, and that after so long, the government could not find anything against me. That was really a big source of happiness for me. And I really felt it for my mom.
Please take your time, Mr. Badjie. And just to remind you, you have a bottle of water right in front of you if you'd like to drink some water.
She was a strong woman, and definitely all those years she stood firm and continued praying for me, and I'll be forever grateful for her.
After you were released, well, let me put it differently. Prior to your arrest and detention, you were the Commissioner of Police.
Yes.
For operations. Mm-hmm. Did you at any point receive a dismissal letter, for example?
Yes. I received a dismissal letter dated on the 16th of April, 1996 from the police, informing me that I'm dismissed from the Gambia Police Force with effect from 2nd February 1995.
That sounds very unusual.
And that was the situation.
So essentially the dismissal letter came over a year after you were arrested and detained?
Yes.
And then backdated to a few days after your arrest?
That's correct.
And so apart from that letter, well, as a result of that letter, did you at any point receive any kind of benefits or salary from the police?
Because when you are dismissed, you don't receive any benefits.
But did you eventually receive some benefits or your salary?
The salary stopped that very day. I'm sure they stopped it that very day, based on the letter they had.
but which you only received a year and some months after.
Yes, after I was reinstated, and the letter was from the Ministry of Interior, dated 19th November 1996.
Tell us the contents of that letter.
They said, in the interest of the service, you are reinstated as Commissioner of Police Grade 12 with effect from 2nd February 1995. 1995, yes.
So essentially nullifying your dismissal from the service. That is strange as well. So what happened after that? Did you receive any of your salaries or benefits from 95
yes,
up until 96?
I was paid the whole period of my detention. And I went back to the police as Commissioner of Administration.
So this time a slightly different portfolio?
Yes.
And for how long did you remain as Commissioner of Administration?
I remained as Commissioner of Administration up to January 27 when I was appointed Minister of Interior.
January 27th of which year?
1999.
And for how long did you hold the position of Minister of Interior?
I held the position of Minister of Interior up to 2003.
You gave me a copy of your appointment letter when you were appointed as Minister of Interior.
Yes.
I will ask the usher to bring it back to you so you can identify it.
Okay.
And thereafter, I would like to talk about your responsibilities as Minister of Interior at the time.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, that's my letter of appointment.
And perhaps you can hold on to it while we discuss your responsibilities as Minister of Interior. So you held that position for from 1999 to 2003. Can you tell us what your responsibilities were?
My responsibilities, as stated in the letter, include A, conducting in Cabinet and in the National Assembly business relating to matters within my portfolio. B, putting into effect, in collaboration with appropriate public officers and other secretaries of state, the decisions taken in Cabinet relating to such matters. C, initiating policy on all matters within my portfolio.
And that is quite a general appointment letter.
Yes.
So I would like to talk a little bit more in concrete terms, what your responsibilities were in actual fact. So let's focus on the issue of internal security.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your responsibilities as far as it concerns internal security?
I think as far as internal security is concerned, the responsibility lies mainly on the Inspector General of Police. At my level, it's only policy and, of course, the welfare of all those law enforcement agencies under the ministry.
And when you say policy, what type of policy issues would that involve?
Now, when we talk about policies, is like development policies of the police, the immigration, the fire and ambulance services, as well as the prison services. Of course, expansion of police barracks in the country, police stations. It is the responsibility of the ministry to liaise with the Ministry of Finance and local government to find land and also the funds to build those stations and of course the barracks for the families. We will also negotiate with our line counterpart ministries for the welfare of the forces under the Department of State, for their canteen, the feeding of the men and women in uniform.
What about issues concerning weapons and ammunition? What was your role in relation to that as far as policy is concerned?
Our role as a ministry is to facilitate when we receive a request from the Inspector General of Police, a request of weapons. They will send it to the ministry, and we in turn we will write to the Ministry of Finance for the purchase of the weapons that the police are requesting.
I'd still like to focus on the period in which you were Minister of Interior, so from 1999 to 2003. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that matters of internal security generally fall under the Inspector General of Police.
That's right.
Who did the Inspector General of Police report to?
The Inspector General of Police can report both to the Minister and to the President of the Republic.
What was the standard practice in general?
In general, mainly, most of the time, he will report to the Minister of Interior, but in other cases involving investigations, they liaise more with the Department of State for Justice.
But in your role as minister, you would be responsible for answering questions regarding the police as well.
Yes, I'll be responsible before the National Assembly for answering questions concerning the police.
What about before the cabinet?
Before cabinet as well.
So essentially you were supervisor or boss of the IGP, so to speak.
I will not say supervisor because the law did not say it, but I will say I was the mouthpiece of the police in the National Assembly and in cabinet.
So you would receive information from the Inspector General of Police concerning matters of internal security,
That's correct, ma'am.
Perhaps before we go further, can you give us an idea of the structure of the police force during that period?
During that period, the organogram of the police force, you have the Inspector General of Police, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, 2 commissioners of police, one of operations, and the other one administration. And then you have the divisional commanders in the 7 administrative areas. Under them you have the police stations. And on the other side you have the police intervention unit, which as a specialized unit of the police is under the Inspector General of Police, but on operational matters to the Commissioner of Operations.
Just to be clear, so the police intervention unit on operational matters would refer to the Commissioner of Operations, which then, of course, would go to the IGP, right?
That's correct, Ma, because as a special unit, the police intervention unit cannot be deployed without the approval of the Inspector General.
And we will come back to that. I know that as Minister of Interior at the time, your portfolio went beyond the police. So it included other services.
That's right.
Perhaps it's good to just give us an idea of those, because my focus is really on the police. But let's have an idea of which other forces you were, well, units you were responsible for.
Yes, other than the police, I was having the Gambia Immigration Department, the Fire and Ambulance Services, as it was called then, and the prison services.
So focusing still on the issue of internal security and the IGP reporting matters of internal security to you, because of course you've told us that you need to answer questions at Cabinet as well as before the National Assembly. When it came to matters such as intelligence reports concerning issues that were happening in the country, that presumably is something you would have access to, where it was necessary to, of course, inform Cabinet or the National Assembly, correct?
Yes, intelligence reports, we have the police CIU, Criminal Intelligence Unit, which of course will do their findings, research, and submit the report to the Inspector General of Police, who in turn will also brief me on the situation.
Can you tell us more about how those briefings were conducted? What format would they take, and in which kind of instances would you receive such briefings?
Those briefings are normally in the form of a meeting with the Inspector General of Police, who will come and highlight the salient issues or the burning issues of the time. And because some intelligence report is better not to leave copies, it should be verbal as well.
And so you would receive these reports either in person, through a briefing, or reports, correct?
Yes, through a report.
Perhaps focusing a little bit more on how that information flowed generally. Hypothetically speaking, if there was supposed to be instructions coming from either from any member of the Cabinet, so any of the political appointees or the president himself, presumably based on what you've explained, that would go through you to get to the IGP.
Yes, ma'am.
That would be the normal course of events.
That's right, ma'am.
Okay. So perhaps let's go a bit more into the events of April 10 and 11th.
Right.
But just before that, I think it would be a good idea to just get more about your career after you were Minister of Interior, just so we know your entire progression, and then we'll come to the specific events of April 10 and 11.
Yes, ma'am.
After you left as Minister of Interior in 2003, what was the next position that you held in government?
After I left in 2003, the government, I worked for the UN mission in Côte d'Ivoire. Up to 2005, I came back home. It coincided with the 2006 elections. And in 2007, I was appointed ambassador of the Gambia to Morocco.
And for how long did you have that position?
I remained in that position for 5 years, up to 2012, when I was moved to France as ambassador of the Gambia as well.
And for how long did you serve as ambassador, Gambian ambassador to France?
I served for 2 years, 2012 to 2014. I was recalled and appointed Minister of Works and Infrastructure.
And can you tell us which year, not the specific dates if you don't know, but which year you served as Minister of Works?
I think I have my appointment letter, if you may allow, Deputy Lead Counsel.
Yes, indeed. Please refer to it.
This was... I was appointed Minister of Works in August 2014.
And for how long did you hold that position?
No, it was in August, sorry, on the 25th of August 2013.
So you would have been ambassador to France from 2012 to 2013 then?
Yes, to 2013, that's right, ma.
So Minister of Works from August 2013 until when?
Until 13th of November 2014, when I was relieved of my appointment.
After that, did you hold any other position in government?
No, after that, I did not hold any position. That was the end of my public career, service career.
So for the bulk of your career within the civil service, you were either minister or an ambassador, correct?
That's correct, no.
So thank you for that information. We can go back to April 10 and 11. I would like to begin with the events leading up to April 10 and 11. Can you tell us what information you were aware of concerning the issues surrounding the Students' Union at the time?
The information I got from the police was that the students were planning to have a demonstration because of the two incidents that happened, one with the fire service, who were having in their custody one student, Ibrahim Abari, if I may recall it, and whatever treatment they subjected him to, according to them, led to his death. And as a result, the student body leadership were not happy with that situation. That's one. And the other information I received is that the PIU, while on duty at the Independence Stadium, an incident of rape was reported accusing one of the police intervention unit officers.
So at the point that you received this information as Minister of Interior, these two incidents were being presumably investigated
yes,
by the police?
According to the IG and of course to the chief fire officer, they were seriously looking into the matter.
But these matters came to your attention through a briefing by the IG, by the police.
That's
who
correct.
In particular?
That's correct, by the Inspector General of Police.
As a result of this information, do you recall having any meetings with members of the student leadership at the time? And I'm referring to GAMSU in particular.
Meeting with members of the student leadership, I think we had a meeting at the Gambia College.
Prior to the meeting at the Gambia College, do you recall meeting the president of GAMSU?
No, the president of GAMSU, we met him well after the meeting in the college.
In which circumstances?
He came and my secretary announced that Mr. Omar Diouf was here. He's the leader of the Gambia Student Union and wanted to see me.
So let's take it chronologically. Let's start with the meeting that occurred at the Gambia College. Do you recall when that took place?
I don't remember the date, but I know for sure that I was in that meeting with the Inspector General of Police, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, and we met the principal of the college and some other community leaders in Brikama.
Can you tell us what the purpose of that meeting was?
The whole purpose of the meeting was to reassure the parents of the two victims, as well as the student body, that their concerns are well noted and taken care of. The police and the fire service are looking into the matter.
You say to inform the parents of the two victims. This was in Brikama, I take it?
Yes.
At Gambia College.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of the fact that one of the victims doesn't reside in that area at all?
I'm not aware. It's possible, but I'm not aware of it.
But your intention was to go meet community leaders as well as the students,
Yes.
and reassure them about the steps that were being conducted.
Because we were told that one of the victims was from Brikama, so that's why we decided to do so.
So having said that the objective was to reassure the students as well as the families of those victims, what was your, can you tell us how that meeting went?
Now, of course, the meeting, when you go to a meeting, the host is the first to welcome you. And after welcoming you and introducing you to the audience, they will ask you to take the floor, which I did as the head of the delegation. And I explained the purpose of our presence there, that we are here to reassure them that these two matters are being handled by the right authorities, the two institutions, the fire service and the Gambia police force. And that, of course, that has to follow the due process. So they need to be patient and know that things will be done in accordance with procedures.
How did the students receive that information, the student leaders?
Yeah, it seems from my own observation, I think they were in a haste to expedite everything, but administration does not work that way. You have to go through procedures, especially when it involves death. That body has to be post-mortem to determine the cause of death. And the post-mortem report is a very important document for the file docket. And for the rape case, police has their own procedures. You have to conduct an identification parade in the presence of the victim and her family, where all those who were present, who were on duty that very day the incident happened, will be paraded. And the victim will go around all of them and identify the accused. I think that was done by the police authorities.
We'll come to the details of those two cases later, but during the meeting with the students at Gambia College, did you at any point say anything to them about demonstrations?
No, what I remember telling them when they said, when I had information that they were planning a demonstration, I told them, it's your right to demonstrate, but let this be within the confines of the law, because the Public Order Act said, if you want to plan a demonstration, you have to write to the Inspector General of Police and request for a permit. Why is that done? Because you can never tell when you are planning a demonstration. Your intention, maybe it will be a peaceful demonstration, but you don't have control over who is joining that demonstration. So that's why writing to the police is very important. When they approve it, they will provide escort, police escort, and also they will determine the itinerary that the demonstrators are going to take, so as not to disrupt traffic, but also make sure that some security aspects are taken into consideration.
How would you describe your tone and demeanor during that meeting?
My tone was a normal tone, respectful tone. Of course, as responsible people, you don't expect us to leave our offices in Banjul, go up to Brikama and be rude or disrespectful to people. No, that's unthinkable.
Well, let me give you some extracts of what some of the witnesses have told the Commission about that particular meeting. So I'll start with witness we had, Mr. Alaji S. Dabo. And this is what he had to say about that meeting with you and the other heads of security. He considered that meeting an attempt to threaten the students. And in fact, during that meeting, he described the remarks as very harsh and threatening. And he said, in fact, the students were warned that if anyone demonstrates again, they will be dealt with accordingly, and the security of the country will not be compromised. Another witness, Mr. Lamin Job, had this to say about the same meeting. He said it lasted less than 30 minutes, and he said the tone of the IGP and the minister was aggressive, harsh, and very intimidating. Are you surprised to hear that?
I am very surprised, Deputy Lead Counsel. That is their opinion, and they are entitled to their opinion. I respect it. But it is my submission that the whole purpose was to reassure them and tell them that if they want to demonstrate, it's their right to do so, but also let it be within the law. They have to apply and get a permit. That's the right procedure. I don't remember having a harsh tone, and that's not my nature. The people who I work with in the gendarmerie, the police, and as a minister will attest to that.
But you would agree with me that communication is a two-way street, meaning what you communicate and how that message is received, correct?
That's right. I agree with that.
And so in this instance, you said your objective was to reassure, but the feeling that we had from witnesses who were there was the complete opposite, which is a feeling that they were threatened and they felt intimidated.
May I observe that Alaji S. Dabo, was he at the meeting?
Yes.
I don't think he was, because according to his testimony, he said he came at the latter part.
Yes, but he was still in a position to describe what he says was the tone of the meeting.
Because that's what they wanted to portray, not to tell people what their position was as well. But it is my submission. It is my submission.
What do you mean by that? Because we need to understand what you're saying.
You know, communication, as you rightly put it, is a two-way thing. If not, it will only be an information and not a communication. The students, when we arrived, we told them the reason and the purpose of our coming to the campus. And I already told you what the reasons were. And that we wanted to reassure them that everything is being taken care of according to law. But they insisted that they are going to demonstrate because they were not happy with the way or the rhythm things were going. We thought maybe it's not for them to determine how the investigation should be carried out, because those are rules already set and the procedures which the police have to follow. But if they want to demonstrate, it's their right. And even the Inspector General of Police, I think, re-echoed the same thing, that they have to write and the permit will be given. I emphasize that. Write, request for a permit, and the IG will approve it.
At that point, one of the statements that Alaji S. Dabo made was, the warning was if anyone demonstrates again. At that point, when you had the meeting at Gambia College, had there been a demonstration prior to the meeting? Whether it happened days before or not, was there a demonstration?
Yes, I was told there was a demonstration, but around the fire service.
What were you told about that particular incident?
That some students gathered around the fire service and were protesting about action not being taken against the fire officer who's been accused. And consequently, I was told they were throwing stones and broke the windscreens of the fire tenders.
Were you told anything else about the conduct of the security forces during that particular demonstration?
No, I did not. I was never told of the conduct of the security forces during that encounter or the meeting they had, whatever.
Are you aware of any specific orders that were given to either the fire service or the police intervention unit during that demonstration?
I was not aware of any specific order given to the fire service nor the police intervention unit.
So to be clear, you did not receive any kind of briefing about that particular about orders in relation to that particular demonstration?
That's correct, ma.
Okay. During that demonstration, are you aware of any deaths, for instance, or any injuries to the protesters?
I've not received any report of the demonstration.
Sorry, you did not receive any report about the demonstration?
Yes.
So the information that you have provided regarding the demonstration, where did it come from? The general information you've given.
It was a verbal telephone conversation when I was briefed that this is what happened. But there was no written report to clearly spell out what exactly happened, whether there were any injuries or casualties. There was none. Only the damages that the fire service suffered.
And indeed, that's the evidence that we have received, that none of the protesters were injured or none of them were killed. Can you tell us who gave you this, provided you with this briefing?
I think the chief fire officer, Roger Bakurin, gave me the information.
So having gone, the demonstration occurred in Brikama. Nothing happened in terms of injuries and deaths. Then you had the meeting at Gambia College with the student leaders, as well as some other members of the community. After that, because you described the student leaders as wanting to just go ahead with demonstrations, right? But you alluded to the fact that you've had meetings with Omar Diouf, and those meetings came after the college meeting.
Right.
Tell us about those meetings.
Now, I can't remember the exact date, but I was in my office when my secretary announced that Omar Diouf was here and he wanted to meet me, and I allowed him in. So he was brought in, and I listened to him. He said he was here to inform me that he wrote a letter to the Inspector General of Police concerning the incidents of the fire service in Brikama and the rape case at the Independence Stadium. And that he wanted me to arrange a meeting with him and the Inspector General of Police to follow up on actions. And I called the IG. I told him that the student leader is here. His name is Omar Diouf, and he wanted to meet you because he had a letter they wrote to you, but they are yet to get a response. So IGP told me that it will be done.
Do you recall how many times you met with Mr. Omar Diouf?
That was the only time I met with Omar Diouf.
Are you sure about that, or?
As far as I can recollect.
It was that one meeting. So you had an opportunity to know who Omar Diouf was because of that meeting, correct? Yeah. We'll come back to that. You mentioned that after that meeting, or during that meeting rather, you spoke to the IGP regarding the letter of demands, and he said he would look into that. After that, were you involved in any other meetings in relation to the student activities at the time?
No, that was the last. Apart from the college meeting, I was not involved in any other meeting.
Did you receive any information concerning the planned demonstrations? And I'm referring to the demonstrations that then took place on the 10th and 11th of April.
The information I received was a verbal one, telling me that the students, they received strong intelligence report that the students are planning a demonstration on the 10th of April, and that was all.
Well, let's be a bit more specific. When did you receive this verbal report concerning the demonstration?
That was the Friday, I think, Friday before closing.
And the demonstrations then took place on the Monday, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Who did you receive that verbal report?
From the Inspector General of Police.
Apart from the fact that it mentioned the occurrence or demonstration that would occur on Monday, did that report, the verbal report, did it contain any other information about the situation at the time or what was to be expected?
No, it did not contain any other thing apart from the fact that the IG said they did not receive any request for a permit.
So the focus was on the permit and the fact that a demonstration would occur. But more specifically, are you aware of any kind of security risk assessment being conducted in preparation for the demonstration?
I was never informed of any security assessment risk being conducted in prelude to the demonstration.
Would that be something that would normally occur as far as you're aware? Have you seen any kind of security risk assessment in relation to events such as those?
Under normal circumstances, the criminal intelligence unit, normally, they will do that security risk assessment and provide it to the Inspector General of Police, who in turn will share it with his management team. That's normally the procedure.
Throughout your period, your time as Minister of Interior, did you ever see any security risk assessment report?
No. Normally, those ones I don't receive them as a minister. I have not received the security risk assessment.
So, are you assuming that it's something that happens, or you've been informed that security risk assessments are conducted?
I was told about the imminent demonstration of the students. But whether they have any intelligence report to that effect, I think the IG is the only one who can answer that question.
So to be clear, you never received an intelligence report?
That's right, Deputy Lead Counsel.
So neither verbally nor in writing?
That's correct.
So after the IGP told you about the demonstrations that would occur, did he give you any other information about any plans that they had in place?
No further information.
Did you take any steps as a result of the information that you received?
As a result of the information I received, I sent a press release from the ministry. It was broadcast on GRTS that we are aware of an imminent demonstration by the students, and according to information we received, that demonstration, if it goes as planned, will be illegal because there was no permit.
And that was a press release that came from your office, correct?
Yes, indeed, it came from my office.
Do you recall when that was broadcasted on GRTS?
It was broadcast on the 9th, a day before.
So, press release 9th of April, the day before the actual demonstration. On that same day, did you receive any information about any planned meetings between the student leaderships and any member of your cabinet?
I did not receive any information concerning a planned meeting between the student leadership and any authority in government.
So specifically, you were not aware of a planned meeting between the student leadership and the vice president of the Gambia at the time?
That's correct, Deputy Lead Counsel.
And so on that Sunday, did you receive any other information about any plans that were in place to deal with the student demonstration?
I did not receive any plan as to how they were going to deal with the student demonstration.
So let's talk about what happened the next day, that is the 10th of April. Can you tell us what type of information you received as a result of the demonstration? Or more specifically, when did you first become aware of the events of that day?
No, that very day, I did not receive any information. I left my house at 7:30 a.m. and going to the office, of course. And upon arrival at...
Just a second, may I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
Did you speak to anyone on the telephone during that period about the demonstrations?
I was not even having my telephone that day. I did not speak to anybody.
Can you clarify that? What do you mean by you did not have your telephone? Were you in possession of a mobile phone at that point in time?
I had a mobile phone, but that particular day, I must have forgotten it at home. So I went out and I realized that when I was around GTTI that I did not have my phone.
But prior to leaving your house, you said you left your home at 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
Did you receive any phone call from anyone regarding the demonstrations that were unfolding that day?
I don't remember receiving any call that day from anybody about the demonstration.
And so you left your house
Mm-hmm.
intending to go to work, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Can you tell us about that journey to work?
Yes, I arrived at GTTI, it was 7:45 in the morning, and I found the situation somehow chaotic because traffic was not moving. The students were chanting, "Release our leaders." And on the ground I found less than 10 police officers. They were outnumbered by the students, and the situation was such that I have to alight from my vehicle and move towards the students.
And can you describe that situation that you're talking about? You mentioned, obviously, vehicles
Yes.
being stopped, but what was it about the situation that made you alight from your vehicle? What did you observe?
Because I think as a result of that, the students were not happy, but then I did not know the reason for them being not being happy.
What about their demeanor or their behavior made you conclude that they were not happy?
No, it's through their reaction and the way they were chanting. But I must say they were not in any way violent as well.
At that point, you said you noticed less than 10 PIU officers.
Mm-hmm.
What were they doing when you saw them?
They were trying to disperse the students not to be in the road.
And can you describe for us what you observed? How were they trying to do that?
They were trying as usual, as they normally do when they are in such situations, trying to push them to at least get them go back into their school.
Can you describe for us, because we were not present, can you
Mm-hmm.
describe for us how they were trying to push them?
To use their truncheons and the shields they had and ask them to move and get back into the school to free the traffic.
So at that point, the PIU officers were forcefully pushing the students backwards using their equipment, is that correct?
That's correct, and that's the time I arrived. I alighted from my vehicle and went straight to the students. In fact, when the PIU officers saw me, they stopped whatever they were doing. And then I asked the students, what can I do to help diffuse the tension? They gave me two demands. One is they don't want to see any police presence near them. Two, they want the release of their leaders detained at the police intervention headquarters. I told them, consider it done, and I turned around and asked the security forces or the police officers on the ground to disperse. And I made this gesture, go, get out of this place, and I waited 5 minutes to make sure that the orders are executed, which they did.
So to be clear, those were orders that you issued to members of the PIU, and your orders were complied with.
They were complied with.
So you essentially had authority and command to do that at that point in time, correct?
To diffuse the tension, I did it and it was done.
And they complied?
They complied.
So after 5 minutes, what happened?
After 5 minutes, I drove to the police intervention unit where the student leaders were detained. And I think in that process, some of the students from GTTI followed me. They wanted to be sure that their leaders are released. Upon arrival at the police intervention unit, the only police officers I found there were few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3, I don't know, I don't remember exactly, who were guarding the detained students. And I instructed them to release the leaders they have with them, which they did.
You told us that you arrived at GTTI around 7:45.
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you had a discussion with the students.
Mm-hmm.
You ordered the soldiers to the PIU officers to disperse,
Mm-hmm.
and they did. You waited 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So presumably by the time you got to the PIU headquarters, it would have still been around 8. Is that correct?
Yes,
8
that's
in the
correct.
morning.
That's correct, Deputy Lead Colonel.
You said upon arrival, you only saw 2 or 3 PIU officers who were guarding the students.
That's right, as far as I can remember.
So there were no other PIU officers
That place was empty. They were all deployed. I don't know where they were deployed, but there was none other than those ones I'm telling you.
And I believe we should end it there because it's time for the break, but we will continue when we come back from a 30-minute break and then continue hearing from you about what happened.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, it's now time for the break, so I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Mr. Badjie. We will take a 30-minute break and resume at 12 noon sharp. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Council, are we ready to resume? If we are, let's proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The witness is being brought into the hearing room.
Thank you very much indeed.
So,
Welcome back, Mr. Badjie.
thank you.
I hope you had a good break.
Yes, indeed.
Just to remind you that you're still under oath.
Noted.
We will proceed with where we left off prior to the break. You were telling us about the fact that after you left GTTI, you then went to the PIU headquarters.
That's right.
And this would have been around 8 a.m. in the morning. And when you arrived, you did not see any PIU officers apart from the 2 or 3 that were guarding the detainees.
That's right.
Apart from that, the entire place was deserted as though they had been deployed somewhere.
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened when you arrived at the place where the students were being detained?
When I arrived at the police intervention unit headquarters, I instructed the police officers I found there to release the students, which they did. And while that was going on, I heard a tear gas being thrown. That was once. Pow! But from where it was coming, I had no idea because it was far from us.
When you ordered for the release of the students, did you have an opportunity to enter the room where the students were being detained?
No, I did not enter the room. I was outside.
So you spoke to one of the officers there and ordered the release?
And ordered the release. And this was in the presence of Ibrahim Asila, then journalist, now Minister of Information and Communication Infrastructure.
And you were with other students as well who had left GTTI to go with you to the PIU headquarters?
That's right.
So is it fair to say that you weren't in a position to see the condition of the student leaders that were detained?
That's correct. I have not seen the condition, to be quite honest.
You mentioned tear gas. Did you actually see the tear gas smoke, or did you only hear?
I heard the noise, and that was once. After that, I did not hear anything again.
Did you observe anything else around the PIU area while you were there? PIU headquarters, sorry.
After that noise, to be quite honest, as far as I can recollect, I did not observe anything abnormal around the PIU there.
When you left the detention room, presumably to go towards the entrance exit, did you go with any of the student leaders?
At that point, I don't remember going with any of the students towards the exit or the entrance of the PIU.
Do you recall speaking to any of the students then?
I don't even remember. It's a long time, 19 years now, but I don't remember speaking to any of the students at the PIU.
Did you hear any gunshots at that point?
The only thing I heard was the grenade. No, the
Tear gas?
the tear gas. That was the only thing I heard of.
Because the Commission has received evidence from multiple witnesses that there was a lot of shooting going on around the PIU around that time.
At that time,
Yes.
while I was there,
Indeed.
for me, as far as I can recollect, there was no shooting there, other than the grenade, no, the tear gas I heard. And that was not within the vicinity of the PIU, it was far. That's what I can recollect.
So as far as you are concerned, no shooting was heard around the PIU premises?
That's correct, ma.
I'll tell you a bit about the testimonies that we've heard from witnesses.
Okay.
In relation to the questions I have just asked you. I'll start with Alhaji S. Dabo.
Okay.
What he had to say about your presence at the PIU was this. You spoke to them, and you said that you knew that they were under the influence of the opposition, and that all opposition figures who were behind the students would be arrested and charged. Do you recall that?
I don't recall, as I told you earlier on, talking to any of the student leaders. Not to talk about even, I've never mentioned anywhere about any political involvement in the student demonstration.
Let me go further. He then stated that as they were about to board the vehicle to GTTI, they could hear students chanting, and then they heard gunshots. And then he told you, meaning the Secretary of State for Interior, to tell your men to stop firing. But you said that the order had already been given.
That's not a correct statement, Deputy Lead Counsel.
So you deny making any statement to the effect that the order had already been given?
I did not make any statement to that effect because from the PIU, I walked to Westfield.
And we will come to Westfield, but I'm still focused on what happened at the PIU.
Yeah.
Similarly, you deny having heard any gunshots while you were at the PIU premises.
That's correct.
Omar Juf similarly testified, and in his case, he said they heard shooting, and in particular, it was the head of the PIU at the time, Momodou Cisse, who was shooting a pistol in the air, and he told you to order your men to stop, and you did so. So both witnesses mentioning gunshots, mentioning a conversation with you, and asking you to order the men to stop shooting, albeit with different results.
Now, this is their version of the story. As I said, a long time has passed, 19 years. I cannot recall anything that happened. But the side that concerns Momodou Cisse, I think he has started testifying. Maybe if that question is put to him, he will be able to answer. The good thing I can note is that he said, I ordered Momodou Cisse, which personally I don't remember talking to Momodou Cisse, neither seeing him on the ground.
So to be clear, you do not recall seeing or speaking to Momodou Cisse on that day at all?
That's my submission.
Okay. We will still continue because there is a lot more in relation to those testimonies. Mm-hmm. At that point, Omar Juf also testified that you were aware of the meeting with the vice president.
As I said, I was never informed of any meeting with the vice president.
And in fact, the testimony is positive to the extent that you then offered your vehicle to take the student leaders to go and meet the vice president. You deny that?
No, I cannot say, because I'm not aware, and I don't remember even offering my vehicle to take the student for a meeting. To be quite honest, I don't remember anybody informing me of a meeting with the vice president concerning this student issue.
But even beyond that, you don't remember having heard gunshots, which we have heard from multiple witnesses around that time.
What I heard was a tear gas. That's all I heard on that very day at that particular point.
So after you left the PIU premises, you said you went to Westfield. How did you go from the PIU premises to Westfield?
I walked to Westfield. I parked my car at the PIU headquarters.
Were you on your own or did you go with other people?
I was alone walking to Westfield, and along the way I can...
just so we have a bit more clarity, what made you decide to move from the PIU premises to Westfield Junction?
Okay, the reason I got information that a larger crowd was gathered at Westfield. And to inform them that the student leadership is being released, I thought it necessary to walk there and tell them exactly and give them the information, which I did, and I found on the ground former Chief of Defense Staff, retired Colonel Babukar Jatta.
So at this point, you were involved in what was happening underground, based on obviously the orders that you gave at the order you gave at GTTI, the order you gave at the PIU headquarters, and then you were still continuing to Westfield Junction in order to again intervene in order to deal with the matter.
Absolutely. That was all geared towards diffusing the tension.
Do you recall how long it took you to walk from PIU premises to to Westfield Junction?
I think it took about 15 to 20 minutes.
So let's roughly say that by around 8:30 you were at Westfield Junction, correct?
Around to 9, not 8:30 exactly, maybe at some
To
minutes
9.
to 9, yeah.
Indeed,
sure.
because you spent some time at the PIU headquarters.
Yeah.
Up until this point in time, you told us that you did not have your mobile phone with you.
That's right.
Did you communicate with the IGP or any other member of the security force during that period?
On that very day, I did not communicate with the Inspector General of Police, nor any other member of the security forces.
Did you make any phone calls at the PIU headquarters?
I did not make any phone call at the PIU headquarters.
Okay, so you arrived at Westfield Junction at 8:45. Can you tell us what happened there?
When I arrived there, I met retired Colonel Babukar Jatta, the former Chief of Defense Staff, and he informed the students that, hold on, the minister has an information to share with you. That's how I addressed them and told them that their leaders are now released. And that was a welcome news. They all chanted. And from there, we were told again that another group of students were gathering around LK school, and it will be good also to inform that group that this development had happened.
So same questions about what happened at Westfield Junction. Did you at any point hear gunshots?
At Westfield, while I was there, as far as I can recollect, Westfield was very peaceful and calm.
Did you see any security forces present at Westfield?
To me, what I can recollect, to be quite honest, I have not seen presence of security officers at Westfield at that time. From what I can recollect, it's been a long time now, but this is what my memory serves me anyway.
You mentioned earlier about PIU officers forcefully pushing the students back at GTTI. Did you at any point between GTTI, PIU headquarters, and Westfield Junction, do you recall at any point seeing any students being beaten by members of the security forces?
No, I did not see any of them being beaten.
So as far as you were concerned, around some minutes to 9 at Westfield Junction, it was calm?
Yes, from what I can remember.
What happened after you left Westfield Junction?
After I left Westfield, I went with Babukar Jatta to Latrikunda, and when we arrived, he asked the student to be listening, and when I started talking and telling them that about the release of their leaders, I saw a group of boys who joined the group. They were not in uniform, and one of them started throwing stones. I paused. I did not continue talking. After a few minutes, a second one threw stones again. At this stage, I saw the orderly of Babukar Jatta coming towards me as if he was trying to protect me. I told him, I'm fine, don't worry about me. And that's how I left that place, because to me, I don't want to be in a place where violence will be erupted, you know.
At any point between GTTI, PIU headquarters, Westfield, and Latrikunda, where you ended up, did you at any point see any students or any members of the public with weapons?
No, not at all.
And in fact, you've said you did not hear any shooting at all during that period.
When I was at Latrikunda Junction, to be quite honest, I have not heard any shooting.
So you told us because of the stones being thrown at yourself and Babukar Jatta, you chose to leave the area. I assume Babukar Jatta remained.
Yeah, he remained.
Bearing that situation in mind, meaning stones were being thrown, Babukar Jatta was still there, a member of the security force, what measures, if any, did you take in order to address that situation?
I did not take any measures, Deputy Lead Counsel.
You had intervened up until that point. Why didn't you take any measures? Did you try to contact anyone? Did you try to speak to anyone in the security force?
No, I did not speak to anyone, and I did not intervene because the situation was different.
Please tell us what you mean by that.
Now, at GTTI, I found a very peaceful and calm crowd. At the Latrikunda, the crowd at the beginning was peaceful, but was infiltrated by some hostile elements that changes the whole scenario.
Wasn't that more reason to actually act and take some kind of measure? Meaning if you couldn't take a measure yourself directly, you were the Minister of Interior, you were in charge of internal security, there was an internal security matter taking place, why didn't you take any kind of measure? You have an entire apparatus under you.
Yes, that's true, Ma. I did not take any measure because my analysis of the situation is that had I requested for any deployment of the police at that point, it would have been seen as provocative. And that will create more havoc than good.
Now, short of asking for reinforcements, did you relay the information to anyone in the security force in order for them to consider what the best measure would have been if it wasn't about deploying forces at that particular time?
I did not relay any such information to any of the security apparatus.
Did you feel that you had a responsibility to do something about that situation, considering what was happening?
At that point, it was not my impression that I had anything to do there.
Well, you intervened up until that point, and then you told us that hostile elements joined that group,
yes.
The group of students. Why was it that at the point where things deteriorated, that's when you felt that you did not have any other responsibilities?
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
It is correct. Yeah, you are right in not understanding it, but the situation is not the same. Because at Latrikunda, there was no presence of security forces. It was myself, CDS Babukar Jatta, and his orderly. And the crowd at the beginning was peaceful, but infiltrated by hostile elements. I thought at that point, with the presence of Babukar Jatta, he would have been in a position to solve the problem rather than asking for deployment of security. That would have worsened the situation.
But how was Babukar Jatta expected to solve the problem, considering that he was being thrown stones at? And more importantly, Babukar Jatta is from the army. This was an internal matter, internal security, squarely under your portfolio.
Absolutely. He was from the army, this is an internal matter under my portfolio. But we went there with the sole aim of conveying a good message to the students, all geared towards diffusing the situation. Unfortunately, they were infiltrated by some elements who had a different agenda. Yes, internal affairs are under the portfolio of the Ministry of Interior, but also the President, under the Constitution, Section 188, has the mandate to deploy the army as well on the ground.
But at this point, we're talking about a situation where protesters were throwing stones at yourself, the Minister of Interior, as well as the army commander at the time. We're not at the point of talking about getting soldiers.
Yeah, that's right.
So in fact, the president's authority does not arise. At this point, it's really about your own portfolio. What I'm trying to get at is, why didn't you take any kind of measure, at a minimum, to even report what was happening to the rest of either the police force or something? It wasn't about you taking measures on your own to quell the situation. It wasn't necessarily that you jump and then ask for reinforcement, but there's some other measures that could have been taken, but you did nothing.
Yes, Council.
Why?
The Deputy Lead Council, you are right. And I take responsibility for not taking any measure at that point for the reasons I gave you.
So what happened after you left Latrikunda? Where did you go next?
After I left Latrikunda, I walked back again. This time was going through Westfield. When I arrived at Westfield, I saw in the crowd Honorables Halifa Saleh and Sidia Jatta. They were coming from Churchistown. The situation on the ground was very peaceful. And to me, at that point, I said to myself, Alhamdulillah, I was able to diffuse the tension, and for me, mission was accomplished. Little did I know that upon arriving at the PIU, I found out that my vehicle was smashed, the windscreen broken, and there was no police present, neither at the PIU, around the Red Cross and the GTTI. The whole place was empty.
You mentioned that you met Honorable Halifa Saleh as well as Honorable Sidia Jatta. Did you have any conversations with them at that point?
No, I did not have any conversation with them. I just saw them and we passed each other.
Were you still walking at this point?
I was walking.
That's quite a walk from everything you've explained so far.
Yes, I was walking.
So walking from PIU premises to Westfield Junction, from Westfield going all the way to Latrikunda, from Latrikunda going back to Westfield, and then back to the PIU headquarters.
That's right.
Do you recall around what time you arrived at the PIU headquarters?
At the PIU, that would have been around 10:30, I think. 10:30 going to 11, maybe.
And I'm still trying to understand your journey. Throughout that period, you were in the vicinity or the area where shooting was taking place, where students were being beaten, where students were being chased, but your testimony is that at no point did you witness any of that whatsoever.
That's what I can recollect.
That seems a little bit odd considering the testimonies that we've heard from multiple witnesses. But you've now said that when you arrived at the PIU headquarters, you found your vehicle had been smashed, the windscreen had been smashed. Tell us what else you observed at the PIU headquarters.
As I said, I did not find anybody there, and the whole area was deserted somehow. I had to find my way to Banjul.
How did you find your way to Banjul?
I think I was given a lift by somebody. I don't remember exactly who gave me a lift to Banjul. Do
you recall being in the same vehicle as either Babukar Jatta or some other members of the security force going to Banjul?
As I said, it's a long time. I don't remember exactly who. It may be possible, but to me, today, I cannot tell for sure that I was in the vehicle of Mr. So heading to Banjul.
But you must remember something. You left the Latrikunda area. You left Babukar Jatta there. You went all the way to the PIU premises, couldn't use your vehicle, and so you found another means of transport.
Yes.
Do you recall who was in that vehicle, or how many people were in that vehicle?
Which vehicle, ma'am?
The one that took you to Banjul.
That's what I'm saying.
I want clarity on that. What exactly do you recall about the journey, or who took you to Banjul, or how many people were in the vehicle?
Me, what I can recall is that I was taken by maybe the police garage. They gave me a vehicle to take me to Banjul. That's what I can recall, as far as I remember.
So when you arrived in Banjul, can you tell us roughly around what time this would have been? Are we talking about 11 a.m.?
Around 11 a.m., exactly, ma'am.
Can you tell us what you did when you arrived in Banjul?
When I arrived in Banjul, I went straight to my office, and I sat there and started treating the files I found on my desk.
Sorry, you went to your office in Banjul, knowing what was happening in the country, and you continued your work business as usual.
Yes.
Did you at any point speak to the IGP or any members of the security service that day?
I did not speak to the IGP that day, nor any other member of the security.
Did you speak to any members of the cabinet?
I don't remember speaking to any member of the cabinet.
Did you speak to anyone about the demonstrations and the situation in the country at the time?
No, as far as I can recollect.
I'm finding this difficult to understand because of your portfolio at the time. Considering your position, Minister of Interior, again, having the police under your ministry, having the IGP who reports to you directly, there is a situation in the country, a situation that, as far as you could tell, was an internal security issue, but you did nothing when you got to your office. Why?
That's true. As the serial saying goes, kauga ona tiptahun.
Please interpret that for us.
All of ne logis daratach.
And for those who speak English
I
only?
did not speak to any of those ones because I was expecting the Inspector General of Police to submit or come to my office and brief me about the situation. That never happened.
And when that did not happen, did you try to contact the Inspector General of Police? Did you request that he submit a report to you or explain what was happening?
I did not request any report from the Inspector General of Police, simply because from my own observation, it's very unusual that the IG behaves that way. And as the French saying goes, chat échaudé craint l'eau froide, once beaten, twice shy. I was detained for 640 days without being told of what offense I have committed. I was released a week after an incident happened in Farafenye. The NIA came for me and took me to their headquarters from 8 to 7:30 p.m. because the information they got was that I was the one leading the operations in Farafenye. Kundo bin rey sa maam soo gisee lu ñuul daw.
Can you please interpret that?
No,
Roughly.
because of all this serious situation happened. Students were killed by the defense and security forces. Some were injured and maimed. The least I would have expected from the Inspector General of Police and his management is when I arrive in Banjul to come to my office and give me a briefing. Because that briefing would have been very important for me in case the National Assembly or Cabinet wanted briefing about the situation. That never happens. It seems they knew something that even myself I was not aware of.
What happened to you, Mr. Badjie, was a violation of your rights, and that's terrible, and it shouldn't have happened. In this instance, you had a responsibility, and your responsibility was to deal with the internal security matters of the country. You took no action. You did not request reports. It's one thing to expect people to report to you as the normal course of events, but if those reports are not forthcoming, surely you believe you have an obligation to do something, to take steps to find out what is actually going on.
That's correct, Deputy Lead Counsel.
From what you've explained, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said once beaten, twice shy. So was it because of what happened to you in the past that you feared asking questions or taking measures at that point in time, even though you had an obligation to do so?
That's correct, Deputy Lead Counsel.
What do you have to say about that now?
I mean, it's regrettable. I should have done it. I did not do it. I take responsibility. And in fact, to make it's even more serious, because at some point you received information that students were killed, and students, were killed by the defense and security forces, from what you've just said. When did you receive that information? That was in Banjul when I was in my office.
Who provided you with that information?
From different sources.
Would those be official sources, or are you just talking about the information that was circulating generally?
Exactly, the information that was circulating generally, because the police did not provide any such information to me.
So this must have been around after 11 a.m. when you arrived in Banjul.
That's
Do you
right.
recall around what time you received this information?
I received it a few minutes after my arrival in Banjul.
And at that point, the information you had received was that it was members of the defense and security forces who had shot at students.
That's right.
And again, throughout the whole day, you did not take any action, you did not receive any information, correct?
Because the information I got, after that happened, it seems the whole thing, the people disappeared and nobody was in KMC.
You were in Banjul at the time, right? When you say the people disappeared and no one was in KMC, what do you mean by that?
What I mean, the demonstrators were no longer in the street. Everybody went into hiding, and the victims and the injured were taken to the Royal Victoria Hospital.
Well, you told us the information about the shooting was something you received after 11 a.m. When did you find out that there were no longer any people outside demonstrating?
Around the same time, I got news from various sources that there was nobody around there.
But the testimonies we've heard is that the demonstrations were still going on, shooting was still happening at that time, and people were still being injured, and people were still dying at that time.
Really? That's news to me. That's news to me, to be quite honest.
So what you were informed of was that people who had been injured had been taken to the hospital. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
Throughout the course of that day, did you meet any member of the cabinet?
I don't remember meeting any member of the cabinet that day.
Do you recall being in any meetings about the demonstrations on that day?
I don't remember attending any meeting that very day.
Wasn't that just odd?
Yes, it can be. It's very odd, but I can't recollect because it's 19 years today.
But it's such an important incident, and that would have been an important meeting because it would have been a meeting about the shootings and the deaths that occurred. That's not a regular occurrence in the Gambia as far as knowing that information publicly at the time.
You are right, Deputy Lead Counsel. It's very unusual and upward, yes.
And in fact, what I'm suggesting is that if there was such a meeting, surely you would have remembered.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is that you did not participate in any such meeting?
As far as I can recollect, I don't remember having a meeting on that day.
What about the day after?
The day after, I can't remember. I can't remember whether there was a meeting. I'm not quite sure because it's a long time, to be quite honest.
During the course of that week, meaning the week when the demonstrations occurred, do you recall at any point speaking to either the president of the country at the time or the vice president of the country?
During the period?
Yes, that week.
That week? No, the president, I don't remember talking to him.
Not on the telephone and not in any meetings subsequently about the April 10 and 11 demonstration?
Not at all, not at all.
If in a situation like that, where an internal security matter has arisen to the point where the vice president and the president are involved, if any information is to be channeled to the police force, meaning to the IGP, wouldn't that information have been channeled through you, or wouldn't you have been in the picture by virtue of your role?
Under normal circumstances, yes, but that never happened as far as I can remember.
That you did not communicate with any of the people I've mentioned? Because
those are high-ranking officials of this country. You are talking of the president and the vice president. And when a minister should talk to the president or the vice president, he should have something to tell them. And I did not receive any briefing from the police, so I had nothing to tell them.
Well, in such situations as well, if the president or the vice president wants to have more information, they can summon you in order to come and answer questions or in order to provide them with information.
That's
and
correct.
It is only at that point that they would know that from what you've said, you had no information to provide.
That's correct. And if
Did that happen?
If no, I don't remember that happening, because if that happened, I would have been there with the Inspector General of Police.
And from what you've said, you don't recall communicating or having meetings with the Inspector General of Police that week?
No, that day I did not communicate with the Inspector General of Police at all.
That week, did you conduct any visits in relation to the April 10 and 11th incident?
Now, visit maybe to see the extent of the damage in our various stations that were affected.
Maybe, or you recall actually doing that?
I say maybe because I'm not quite sure.
You don't recall if you went out to look at the damage that was caused during the April 10 and 11, 2000 incident, such a unique incident that happened in the history of our country.
Yeah.
You don't recall if you went out to look at the damage.
I don't remember exactly, to be quite honest.
Do you recall, if at all, you went to the hospital, for instance, to see any of the people who were injured or wounded?
No, to be quite honest, I have not been to the hospital.
Why?
Why? Because the state functions on protocol, and if such a serious incident happens, the government should work in a concerted and coordinated effort. So visits to victims at the hospital as a result of shooting incident that happen, a minister cannot take an initiative to do that alone without any authority from the echelon.
So essentially, you're saying that you did not attend you did not go to the hospital, even with any higher-ranking member of the government.
If any higher member of the government visits the victims at the hospital, the protocol is you should invite some other minister. That is their discretion. They are not obliged to. But I don't remember being invited for such a visit.
And again, in relation to the April 10 and 11 incident, after the incident, do you recall if at any point in time, you received any kind of briefings about what happened, either from the Inspector General of Police, either from any member of the police force? Did you receive any information whatsoever about the events of that day?
Up to date, I have not received any information about the events of April 10, 11. No briefing at all.
So from what you're saying, apart from what you observed on that particular day, the information you've provided to this commission, you would have no basis to talk about in detail what occurred that day because you simply did not receive that information.
That's correct, Deputy Lead Counsel.
Do you recall if after the incident you made any statements to the press about the events of April 10 and 11?
Yes, I remember making a statement in which I said the shooting came from the crowd. And after a few days...
Just let's pause and discuss that.
Yes.
Why did you make a statement saying that the shooting came from the crowd? From what you've told us, you would have no basis to make that statement.
Yes.
Why did you make the statement in the first place?
I made it because that was the impression I had.
From who? Or from where? Or from what?
From police sources.
You've told us that you did not receive any kind of official information or communication about April 10 and 11. So what kind of sources are you talking about?
Yes, I did not receive any such information from the Inspector General of Police.
I asked you more broadly about generally, did you receive that kind of information from either the Inspector General of Police or any other member of the police force or from anybody?
I did mention, even in my statement, that the information I was receiving is from junior police officers who from time to time will come to the office. So it was based on that I made that statement, not knowing exactly what the reality was.
But let's focus on that. You made a statement in your official capacity as the Minister of Interior to the Gambian public.
That's right.
To provide them with information. It should be credible information based on something that you know about the events.
That's true.
You're telling us that you did not receive official communication from either the IGP or any official report But you then made a statement to the Gambian public based on information that you got from sources, junior ranking officers. Why did you do that?
Yeah, it was a lapse on my side, and I accept the unprofessional way it was done.
But beyond that, the question is, why did you do it?
I did it because I felt there was a need to communicate. Maybe that was a wrong communication I used. But after, I rectified it.
Indeed, but from what you've said to us, but the problem is making the statement in the first place. And I know you've accepted that what you did was wrong, but I'm still trying to understand why you did it.
To be quite honest, I think I'll just accept and say it was wrong, I did it. But why I did it, I don't know, to be quite honest. It's wrong, I accept it.
Were you told to do that?
No, I was not told to do it.
So you decided to do it of your own accord?
That's right, ma.
I'll leave it at that. You said after you gave that statement, and then you realized that you made an error. What led you to make that realization?
What led me to realize that was the visit of late Dr. Cisse, who came to my office and told me, be careful of what you say. The information we are having at the hospital is that these students died as a result of gunshots. That's one. And two, the former police advisor, Tamsir Jase, also came to my office and said, "Sir, I have good news for you. I viewed the video of the shooting, but I did not see any police presence." To me, it was a relief. And based on those two information, I decided to grant interview to Jenaba Nyang of GRTS.
Well, just to clarify, you said your initial statement was a press statement. Was that a written statement that was read out, or what was the form of the press statement?
No, it was not a written statement. It was like I'm talking now, you know.
Can you tell us the context in which you made that statement? Did you go on TV? Did you go on radio to make that initial statement?
That initial statement, I think, no, I did not go on TV. Maybe they found me in my office, or I don't remember exactly, yeah.
But do you recall which news organization you spoke to?
GRTS.
GRTS. And do you remember who you spoke to at the time when you made that statement?
Yeah, no, I don't remember, to be quite honest. The only one I remembered is the interview that I granted to Jenaba Nyang to correct my earlier version.
And was that the only interview that you had with Jaina Banyang regarding April 10 and 11?
That's correct, as far as I can remember.
And that was on GRTS?
Exactly.
We have a copy of that, a video of that interview. So I will play some extracts, and then get you to comment on the content.
Okay.
Can I ask the OB van to play the video, starting with what is now the second extract?
The action of the security forces during this demonstration.
Can you turn up the volume?
Let me start by saying
And start it again.
this demonstration was not authorized at the first instance.
We're unable to hear any sound from the video.
How would you defend the action of the security forces during this demonstration?
Now, let me start by saying
Sorry,
this
OB ban, we can't hear the audio
was
clearly.
not authorized at the first instance. Because the last meeting they held, the Gamsu people held with the Inspector General of Police, he intimated to them that if you want a procession, I have no problem with that. But let us abide by the law. forward your application to me. I will approve
can we
it
play
and
the
give you police
extract?
escort.
Not this one, but the one after this one.
They kept on their feet.
So the second extract.
Examples that will never kill anybody. It can only burn, life. They did not comply with that offer of the Inspector General. Those were the things we used. We realized also, my security personnel, when did you start? On Monday, during the weekend. Okay, now the Gamsu executive, they are willing to both talk.
Can you just pause for a second? We're having difficulty hearing the audio, but additionally, I don't believe you're playing the right extract. Can you play the next extract? So the second extract, can you start with that? Mr. Chairman, just some information for the commissioners. This entire interview is about 30 minutes long, or 27 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And so we can only play extracts of it. However, the entire video will be exhibited, and then the commissioners can also refer to it. But we just want to play the relevant extracts where Mr. Badjie talks about the issue of the bullets and the shooting, and then we will hear another 2 extracts, and that's it. So,
noted. Just wanted to say noted on that. Thank you.
So, Obi Van, can we please play the second extract?
We were hearing were exercise bullets, blancos that will never.
We've lost the sound.
Kill anybody. It can only burn, life. Those were the things we used. We realized also, my security personnel. When did you start using it? The blank informed that very Monday. Their order students at one point during this. And as a result, they appealed. No, the blank that they wanted to when the students started throwing stones. And to this, and from there, the executive time our officers use the vice president and come back to give the feedback. And that all of them.
Obi Van, it seems as if the video is playing, but we can hear the same video as well in the background. So we're hearing two separate voices, so it's overlapping and we can't hear it. Please play it again with just one.
The firing you were hearing were exercise bullets, blancos that will never kill anybody. It can only burn, life. Those were the things we used. We realized also, my security personnel. When did you start using it? The blancos? Yes. That very Monday. So, at one point during this meeting with the students? No, the blancos were used when the students started throwing stones, and to disperse them, that's the time our officers used both the tear gas and the blancos just to frighten them. And that all of them, they realized. So this is just to tell you that there was no live ammunition we used, because we knew that these are people who are our sisters and our brothers. So we definitely should not be seen in a civilized society like the Gambia to be shooting at people like that. It's not the way we are trained, and we are very mindful of people's life and properties which we are entrusted to protect at all means. But again, they were throwing stones at our people. Now, imagine, let me tell you, just to prove you that there was no live ammunition. Would you believe a security personnel with his rifle, knowing fully well that he has a live ammunition, and if I shoot at somebody, I will kill him, would that person run? He will never run. Running means they know that, at least we should not be harming these students, and now we should run to save our lives. This shows you that there was no live ammunition. Where did the live bullets come from then? And the situation as it was does not warrant for our people to go with live ammunition, because we are not dealing with rebels. We are not dealing with an enemy force that is invading the Gambia. Intelligence father told me that in that crowd, not only students were there, but we have other people who have ulterior motives. And some of those people were armed. That's the time those people started firing shots. And during that firing, the pandemonium and everything, some people got wounded.
Where did they get the arms from?
That we are yet investigating and to know exactly where they kept that ammunition from.
Honorable Secretary of State, most parents we spoke to yesterday were concerned about the students and the children who are detained. What is going to happen next? What's going to happen to those detained?
Well, General, the Gambia is a country that respects the rule of law. I told you earlier on that all those people who were detained for one way or the other, it was during that pandemonium, the whole commotion upon us. And since Monday, our services were engaged, busy, scrutinizing all those people. We have some juveniles among them, that goes without saying. But you'll find out that most of those people were innocent. They just found themselves in the fait accompli. And as a result, during that process, those who have no case to answer will be released forthwith. Those who actually have something to answer, we will prepare the charge and forward it to the Attorney General's chambers for advice. And that is on the process already. We will soon start releasing those who have nothing absolutely to answer.
Honorable Secretary, if I can take you back a little, it would seem as if you were saying it was not the security forces that were opening fire on the students.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, exactly. As far as I know, it was not the security forces because they were only using blankos and there was no instruction given to them to use live ammunition to anybody. That particular Monday here in KMC area.
And you were saying that the live ammunition that was being used was definitely not that of the security forces?
Not at all, because what the intelligence told me is that we have some armed personnel, some armed people inside the crowd who are using it, and we are still pursuing our investigation to know where they get those things from.
Mr. Badjie, were you able to hear and understand that interview?
Yes, I did.
Do you now recall the content of the interview?
That's right.
This was the interview that you said you granted in order to correct your statement.
Exactly.
Which was that the students, which was about how the students were killed. In this extract, what we have heard is you saying that the police officers or the security forces used blankos. And you made a categorical statement stating that they did not use live ammunition. You already told us that by after 11 a.m. on Monday morning, you already heard information, general information, that the students were killed by the defense forces. You also told us that you did not receive any reports, detailed information telling you what happened on that day. What do you have to say to the statement that you've just heard yourself say?
Yes, this statement is my statement, that's correct. And I remember, as I told you, when the police advisor came to my office, what he told me is he saw a video of the shooting incident but did not see any police present.
Before, and you still stick to the same lines, which is the security forces did not fire live ammunition. The shooting came from the side of the protesters. Why did you do that?
Yes, I was misled, I can say, and I apologize for not stating the right things.
But prior to you seeing this video, the impression you gave was that you made a statement basically blaming the security. Well, you made a statement that you wanted to correct. This video was meant to correct a statement you made earlier, which was misleading. But in actual fact, this interview itself is furthermore misleading. Isn't that the case?
Yes, it is, and I really regret it, and I apologize for that.
What do you have to say to the victims and families who were injured and who died as a result of the shooting by security forces, especially considering your role at the time and the statements that you have made to the public?
To the victims and their families, I will say this was a regrettable incident, and I really sympathize for all the pains you've been through all these years. And to those who lost their lives, we still continue to pray for Allah to grant them eternal rest in Jannah. To the families, all our apologies on behalf of the security forces for what happened. It should not have been, and we deeply regretted it. And we apologize from the bottom of our heart, you know, to be quite honest.
And what about your own responsibility?
My own responsibility for the statement I made. I say I accept it, and it was wrong and unprofessional from an official authority. I was misled. I believe in that person. Unfortunately, it turned out to be different.
There are further extracts in the video, but I notice we don't have much time. So instead, Mr. Chairman, I will ask that the video be admitted into evidence as Exhibit 0085, and the commissioners will be able to review the entire interview in context in order to hear everything that the witness had to say on the issue of April 10 and 11th.
Request granted.
Mr. Witness, I have a couple of other exhibits that I would like to bring to your attention. As I mentioned, we have very limited time, but one exhibit would be the Commission of Inquiry's report from August 2000, and this is Exhibit 0083. I had shown you a copy of it. Yesterday. And it was a summary of your testimony before that commission, the April 10 and 11 commission in 2000. So a summary of your testimony, as well as the findings of the commission in relation to your actions. So I will show you the report again, and then I will quickly read a couple of extracts and get your comment on the content.
Yes, I see is the report of the Commission of Inquiry.
Do you recall testifying before that commission?
Yes, I recall testifying before that commission.
And after the commission concluded its inquiry, did you have an opportunity to read the report prior to yesterday when I showed it to you?
Prior to yesterday, I never saw this report. It's only today I'm seeing it, Deputy Lead Counsel.
So I will read from page 19 of Exhibit 0083. I'll start with a summary of your testimony before that commission. And this is what the commission had to say. The Secretary of State for the Interior, Ousman Badjie, testified as witness number 15 and narrated how he stopped by GTTI as he was on his way to work. He saw a group of students near GTTI, and with the intelligence report at the back of his mind, he got off his vehicle and walked to the security forces and asked them to stop chasing the students. The security forces stopped. He spoke to the students, who said that they had been stopped by a student and asked to come down from the buses. He calmed them down and went to the GTTI with them. There they found a bigger group, and he went to PIU with some student leaders to help get their leaders released. Those were released, and as they came out of the PIU, they saw some students running. Tear gas smoke was everywhere. The witness asked Omar Diouf and others to come down from a vehicle, taking them to Banjul for the meeting with the vice president, for them to help calm the students. They had tried, but to no avail. As he was walking towards Westfield, he met the chief of staff around Ousman. He walked to Westfield, where he and others addressed students from Churchillstown End, and later had learned that there was another group at Bakhote petrol station. He had gone with the Armed Forces Chief of Staff towards Serekunda Market, where they were told that there was a hostile group at Dipakunda. As he spoke, stones were being thrown and he was asked to leave. He drove the car of the Chief of Armed Forces and returned to PIU, where he and others found the windscreen of his car, which had been parked there, smashed, and the mobile traffic office and the PIU headquarters burnt. He was stranded there and had no car to go to Banjul. He was later joined there by the Chief of Armed Forces to Banjul for a meeting. He denied hearing or witnessing any fire. On 11th April, the witness said he was in his office as usual. He said the PIU men had been overpowered by the students and that he had not personally seen any student with a gun on that day. He was not in charge of the GPF operationally. He said he had given instructions for PIU to be deployed with riot gear, and as far as he knew, that was what happened. He agreed that some people died from gunshot wounds according to the autopsy reports. He did not agree that those who died were killed by people with guns. He said they had done everything to calm down the students and reason with them, but it appeared that there was a more powerful force behind them. He denied that the Secretary of State for Local Government had appealed to him to keep the PIU away from the scene. He had only been asked to provide a vehicle, which he did. He denied having any command. He had only instructed security forces to stop chasing students. He had only given instructions from his end and not commands. He denied hearing gunshots at GTTI or Westfield. He said the IGP can give order for guns to be fired and he can delegate. He remembered meeting OC of the station, ASP Modu Sise, who said they were overpowered by the students who burnt the station. He found the National Guard in the ground assisting apart from the PIU. This is a summary of the testimony you provided to the Commission of Inquiry. As you notice, there are some discrepancies with your testimony here before the Commission. I can highlight some of them, but I'm sure you know them. One thing for certain is, as they came out of PIU, they saw some students running. You said when you came out of PIU, it was deserted. You did not see anything. You mentioned hearing one tear gas being fired, but not seeing the smoke. Your testimony before the Commission states that tear gas smoke was everywhere. I asked you about whether you spoke to the student leaders, and here you said, during your testimony to the Commission, you said that you asked Omar Juf and others to come down from a vehicle in order to calm the students. Later on, you also, you said here that you walked all the way from PIU to Westfield to Dipakunda, back to Westfield and the PIU. And here it states that you drove the car of the Chief of Armed Forces and returned to PIU, where you found your car smashed and other property burned. It also says that you later joined the Chief of Armed Forces for a meeting. It goes on. Similarly, you made other statements that are different from the statement you've made here to the Commission. For example, you also said that you had been asked to provide a vehicle, which you did. Similarly, you denied here meeting ASP Modu Cisse at the PIU headquarters, or in fact seeing him at any point during the day. But in your statement to the Commission, you said that you met him at the PIU headquarters, and in fact, he's the one who gave you information to the effect that they were overpowered by students. These are some examples of the discrepancies between the testimony that you provided to the Commission of Inquiry in 2000 and your testimony here before the Commission. What do you have to say to that?
Yes, Ma, thank you. And as I told you, this report, I'm seeing it for the first time today. And contrary to the practice you have in this TRRC, the Commission of Inquiry never provided a draft to me to read and confirm that what is written or typed is exactly what I said in that commission.
And similarly, as I explained to you yesterday, indeed our practice is if you provide a witness statement to the Commission, we take that statement, we give it to you so that you have an opportunity to read it, so that you can confirm what is in there, and then you can sign it, or at least we know you've had a chance to review the content.
That's right. Exactly.
However, when you testify before the Commission, as you're doing today, we will not come back to you to ask you to verify exactly what you said, because there is a record of what you're saying to the Commission.
That's right.
I assume, similarly, that this Commission, for people who testified before it, had a way of record keeping. And this is a summary of your testimony before them.
But they never provided, prior to writing this report, any copy so that I can confirm yes or no that what I said in that commission reflects exactly what happened.
Are you essentially saying that the statements that are captured in the Commission of Inquiry's report are not the statements that you made during your testimony?
As far as I can recall, some of them are correct, but the others, to be quite honest, I don't remember saying it.
And the ones that you would say are incorrect are the ones that contradict your testimony here before the Commission.
Those
correct?
are the ones exactly, as I said, I don't remember, but Mamadou Cisse will testify to that effect. talking to Mamadou Cissé or see him on the ground. I did not even also remember providing a vehicle for a meeting with the Vice President, nor was I informed of such a meeting with the Vice President.
And in fact, beyond that, you don't even recall having seen tear gas smoke everywhere.
As I said, when I heard the tear gas noise, it was far from where I was. So it's only the noise I heard. Why smoke? I was not aware. I did not see. That's as far as I can recollect.
But it is quite convenient for you to say now that the report or what was captured is inaccurate. As far as we are concerned, this is an official report, and we go on the basis that the information contained herein is accurate because it is an official record of the proceedings. It seems very convenient for you to now say that you did not get to see a copy of the report, and so the contents of the report are inaccurate as far as some of your statements are concerned. It just seems very convenient at this point.
No, because I'm just saying what happened actually. Contrary to what the practice is in this TRRC, personally, I did not receive any copy before the publication of this report. That's why I said it.
Well, let me move on to the findings of the commission, which I also read to you yesterday. And now I'm referring to page 27 of Exhibit 0083. And the paragraph reads as follows. Although there is no evidence showing that the Secretary of State for Interior gave the order for the security forces to shoot at students, we find in his testimony that he did not hear any firing could not be true. From the evidence before the commission, he must have heard firing as he was around the PIU area and Westfield and testified that he met up with the Chief of Armed Forces. He met the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, who confirmed meeting him at the PIU when he came from Dipakunda, and that when he heard the firing from PIU, he, the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, met both the DIGP and the Secretary of State for the Interior, and later joined him to Banjul with an escort who was a PIU officer armed with an AK-47 rifle. The Secretary of State for the Interior confirmed joining the Chief of Armed Forces to Banjul as well. Why then did the Secretary of State for Interior deny hearing firing or seeing any armed security officer? That's what the commission had to say. And at the end, in terms of their recommendations, I will also read that out because of time constraints. I'm referring to page 45. In terms of the recommendations, paragraph 4 of page 45 reads as follows. Top police authorities on the ground at Kanifing on the 10th April 2000 should accept responsibility for the tragedy that happened, namely, Secretary of State for the Interior, Ousman Badjie, Deputy Inspector General of Police, Sankum Badjie, Commissioner of Operations, Babukar Sow, Assistant Superintendent of Police, Mamadou Cissé. What do you have to say to that conclusion and the recommendation?
I think that conclusion, I read it then in the press that I should accept responsibility. And my position was, I see no reason why I should accept responsibility for not, because I have not given any order for any police officer to shoot any student.
And in fact, the factors that the commission referred to prior to concluding that you and others should accept responsibility was in relation to the police conduct. So one thing they mentioned is the police should make it a point of duty to speed up all investigations and to be transparent in all sensitive cases in order to convince the nation that justice is being done. Point 2, the police should be well equipped with the appropriate and up-to-date gears, including water cannons, to deal with all types of civil unrest. 3, all security agencies should be more flexible, courteous, and tactful in their dealings with the general public. And their final conclusion relates to people such as yourself who were in positions of authority who could have ensured that this occurred. There are, of course, other findings in relation to direct perpetrators and some other individuals. But that is the conclusion of the Commission.
Yes, Deputy Lead Counsel. You see, this commission now, with the evidence the TRRC has today, or since people started testifying before this commission on the April 10-11, has somehow exonerated the main person who gave the order. So how credible is this report, therefore?
What do you mean by that? Who was the main
Because
person?
we received the testimony of the former ADC to the president, to the former president, who said he heard the conversation or the former protocol of the vice president called while they were in Cuba and said the vice president wanted to talk to the president about the situation on the ground on April 10. And that the telephone was handed over to the president, and he can hear him saying, handle these people anyhow you can.
But the Commission of Inquiry's report does not put responsibility at your feet for giving any order.
Thank you
In
very
fact,
much.
they stated that they did not believe that you gave the order.
Thank you.
But the responsibility is about your portfolio as Minister of Interior and the steps that you should have taken and did not take.
Yes, I accept that. There are some steps I should have taken, I have not taken them. And I'm glad that the commission said they have no evidence of me ordering the students shooting. That I'm glad, I'm happy.
But you do understand that responsibility goes beyond merely giving an order. Yes, the person who gives an order is responsible, but there are other people who are also responsible based on the roles that they either held or the actions that they took or did not take if they had an obligation to take them, as in your case.
That's correct, Deputy Lead Counsel.
I'll just move on to a final matter, and it concerns the testimony that you provided earlier about your presence, about the fact that you were not present at various meetings in relation to April 10 and 11 after the incident. Mm-hmm. So I'm referring to official meetings that were conducted at the time. So I will provide some information from a particular witness statement. I will not read out the name of the witness at this point, but I will provide, as a matter of fairness, I will provide the name to you in a paper that the usher will bring after I've read some of the extracts. And do not repeat that name. It's out of fairness to you, so you know where the information comes from. But the person has not testified yet, and so for that reason, that's how I will proceed. A few extracts from the statement. One extract talks about briefings going to a member of the cabinet, and it states, the Minister of Interior and other ministers and other security heads came to my office on an ad hoc basis to brief me on the situation. I did eventually, and I'm picking out various extracts that refer to Minister of Interior. I did eventually have a meeting with the Minister of Education Minister of Interior, and the service chiefs 2 on subsequent days, the 2nd or 3rd day. From what you've told us, you don't recall any of these meetings. In terms of speeches that were drafted, this information here states that such speeches, speeches related to April 10 and 11, would have been drafted by various security services and collated by the Office of the President, the Ministry of Interior, and the Minister of Defense. As far as you know, was your ministry involved in drafting any other statements apart from the one that you mentioned?
I don't remember my ministry involved in drafting any statement other than the press release we issued.
Another extract refers to a meeting of various ministers, well, of various individuals, including yourself, service chiefs, and it was the day after the April 10 and 11, or the day after that. So in the first few days of April 10 and 11. And according to the information here, it states that the president spoke to individuals who were present in that room, meaning the President Yahya Jammeh, including yourself, as well as Baboucarr Jatta, and other service chiefs who were present. But you've denied having any conversation with the president at the time, even via telephone.
I don't remember talking to the president on phone.
When the president returned from his trip, there was a meeting of the cabinet, and he was briefed about the situation in the country. At that meeting, it was a meeting of the cabinet, presumably you were present. You deny having been involved in any cabinet meeting to brief the president about April 10 and 11.
Is there any list of attendance? Because cabinet meetings, normally the ministers who attend, there is a list for that.
Indeed, but I'm trying to get from you specifically whether you now recall this specific instance of briefing the president at a cabinet meeting.
Because I said it's been a long time. I cannot remember some of those things. But if this is now provided and we have the list, then I will say yes. Now I remember.
But as we discussed earlier during your testimony, this was a very unique situation, and the questions were specifically about whether you participated in meetings of this kind, which you would have then recalled, and you said no.
No, to be quite honest, cabinet discussion on this thing, I don't remember it, to be quite honest. But if this is now what is coming out, I will say yes, I accept.
But we want to know from your own testimony whether that was the case, because you've said no.
No, now that I'm saying is the case.
Sorry, you're saying now because I've told you that someone else has said that there were meetings about a cabinet, now you've decided that that was the case and you were present at those meetings.
Yes.
That's quite a jump, because I haven't even told you who made these statements. But you're easily agreeing with the fact after having denied it earlier in your testimony.
No, I did not deny. I say I cannot remember. I did not deny.
I asked you specifically, and I said that would have been a unique situation. Surely you would have remembered that at the time. After that, you said, no, you do not recall any such meetings.
My apologies then.
But now that I've told you that someone, you don't even know who made the statement, you're willing to accept that you were at such meetings.
My apologies.
Can you tell us the content of those meetings then?
The content, unless I have the minutes, I cannot remember the content, to be quite honest, and what was discussed in those meetings.
Do you recall briefing the president or speaking to the president in any of those meetings?
Meetings, if you go, people take the floor by turn. As I said, I could not give any substantial briefing because myself, I did not receive any briefing from the Inspector General of Police.
But of course, from the video recording of your interview with GRTS, we saw that you were able to give detailed briefings to the public about the events of that day. So we cannot just assume that because you've said you didn't receive briefings, you were not similarly able to do that when it came to cabinet meetings or your communications with either the president, vice president, or any other member of government.
That's correct.
Okay. I will conclude it there. Thank you very much for answering my questions, Mr. Badjie. I have reached the end, so I will defer to the chairman, and then he will provide you with an opportunity to make a final statement.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have concluded. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council, very much, and thank you, Mr. Badjie, for your testimony. Before I turn to the commissioners, if you can just help me, because I think your remarks about having been left out or not participating in any meetings at all, briefing meetings on the 10th and the 11th of April, has left me in a state of complete bewilderment that you as Interior Minister not participating in any what would have been perhaps a crisis management group at the top echelon, that nothing has happened at that moment. If that was true, why didn't you resign?
Chairman, I tender my sincere apologies for that, and I think it was a lapse. Thank you. That's all I can say.
You mean you would have resigned?
No. I'm not saying I would have resigned. I just said the statement I made that I did not participate in those meetings was a mistake on my side, and I apologize for that.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you have any questions, Commissioner Carr, you have the floor.
Thank you. You made mention that during your some of the meetings you had with the students, you mentioned the issue of the Public Order Act. I want to know how that reflects with constitutional provisions that allow for free assembly.
Yes, Commissioner, the Public Order Act, there is a Supreme Court ruling, I think 2017 or 2016, which says the Public Order Act is in accordance with the Constitution, though there is no contradiction. So that is a jurisprudence now.
My question was in reference to events that later happened on April 10th, with the way, with the injuries and the deaths. Would you say the situation was well handled?
Sorry, can you come again?
My question was in reference to that the Public Order Act, the constitutional provisions, and the results of the events on April 10th. Would you say the public officials, including yourself, handled that situation well?
No, I'm not getting you right. What exactly? Can you come out again?
Let me go to the other questions. You can just leave that question. Did you do anything as Minister of Interior to monitor events that were happening in other parts of the country, particularly in Birkamoba?
The monitoring, we can only rely on the Gambia Police Force, the Inspector General of Police, which has representation all over.
I mean you personally as as Interior Minister responsible for internal security.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. The only monitoring mechanism I can have is from the Inspector General of Police.
Did you receive any information on that?
On the Brikamo, the provincial incidences, there was no report I received from the police.
Did you also do anything personally to get information as to the situation in that?
Whether I did anything personally?
Yes.
No, I did not do anything personally to get information.
You also accept responsibility for that?
Of course. I said it, and I told the deputy lead counsel here that I accept responsibility for not requesting from the Inspector General of Police to provide me with those information.
Final question is, this you can include in your closing remarks. What lesson would you advise public officials to learn from those events? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Imam Yala, have the floor, please.
Mr. Badjie,
Yeah.
it seems you and the armed forces of the Gambia totally misunderstood the students of the Gambia. The letter I have read this morning from the report, the commission, the students were simply requesting for a permission to march, not to demonstrate. But every officer I have had speak here in this hall has been talking about a demonstration, a demonstration, a demonstration. Don't you think that by misrepresenting the students' intentions led to the massacre of innocent citizens unnecessarily? Can you please dilate?
I don't think we misrepresented the students, because when they applied for a demonstration.
I have read this morning, it's right there.
Personally, I've never seen that letter. It was maybe addressed to the Inspector General of Police, but I've never seen it. Yeah, I've never seen it, Imam.
The next question is, I heard you use this expression, once bitten, twice shy. I'm surprised you use that in the context of what has happened to you and to other senior officials of this country. You were arrested, jailed, beaten probably, or some other torture inflicted on you. But every time Yaya Jammeh laid his hand out to accept you back, you are all willing always to jump back and join him. Why do you think Gambians were behaving like this, including you?
Commissioner Imam, I think as a Gambian, I was not working for President Yaya Jammeh. Because when I was appointed and when I was taking my oath, the oath of allegiance is, I bear true allegiance to the Republic of the Gambia and not to a particular person. Yes, he was the president. He's the one who identified me among 109 million or 200 Gambians, 2 million Gambians, to appoint me to that position. But that does not mean I was entirely on his service and be ready to do whatever he instructed me to do. That's not me. And I'm grateful for the trust and confidence he had in me by appointing me to those positions as minister, as ambassador as well. Whatever I achieved during my tenure as minister and ambassador is now benefiting the Gambians.
Do you think if you people had resigned from your positions, you would have created the Yaya Jammeh that we had for that period?
We did not create Yaya Jammeh. Yaya Jammeh was born from his two parents. And he came to power through a coup d'etat, which personally, as a security personnel, I don't support coup d'etats. I'm allergic to coup d'etats. And then after that coup d'etat, they went through a transition. He went through elections. Gambian elected him. So all of us who voted for Yaya Jammeh are somehow responsible for the person we created. Because at that time, we thought he was the best person and the best choice for us. And how many times, how many elections has he gone through and he was always re-elected by Gambians?
Commissioner Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Badjie, I'm trying to make sense of or to understand the decisions that led to some of your actions as well as your inactions in certain circumstances. You did make mention that in the aftermath of the April 10th and 11th, you refused or you did not probe further questions or to inquire what really happened because of what had happened to you with your victimization being detained for 640 days. However, when we look at the video, the interview that you granted to Jane Abinyang, you seem to be the person in charge. You had so much authority when you spoke. I just want to understand what changed from what happened before and then when you decided to give the interview. What changed?
No, because me, to be quite honest, I did not follow up the Inspector General of Police on some of these issues for the reasons I gave you.
For someone who was scared to speak, you spoke very authoritatively in the interview. So what changed?
Yes, that's, I've already admitted that it was a mistake, and I deeply regret it.
Okay, my second question is regarding prison conditions. You seemed very upset when you talked about your detention for 640 days. As the Minister of Interior, following your release or when you were finally appointed, what initiatives did you take towards reforming prison conditions, if any?
Yes, the prisons is a very important institutions in the Ministry of Interior because I went through it as a detainee. After my release and my appointment as a Minister of Interior, I visited the prisons. And my first point of call was at the remand wing, and I went straight to my cell. And I spoke to those people detained there. I was the one who initiated sponge mattresses for the remand wing. I did not stop at that. I then spoke to the then Chief Justice while I was chairing the Prisons Council that I want the court to move to Mile 2 and examine the files of those detained because the remand wing was overcrowded, which they did. Justice Yahya was a member of the Prisons Council. We all visited the remand wing with the judges and the magistrates who are members of the Prisons Council. We entered the maximum security wing and visited those convicts, common law prisoners as well. Some of them were reluctant, but I insisted because you are the people sending people to jail, you have to come and see what the conditions are. So before you pass any judgment, you'll think twice. That was done during my time. Before 1994, there was no juvenile wing. Children of the Gambia were detained at the prisons with the elders, the adults. That contradicts international norm. I negotiated with the British Embassy through defeat, and they built the Joshua Juvenile Wing. These, among many others, in trying to improve the food of the inmates in Mile 2 I did. I'm not taking credit for it, but I thank God for at least allowing me to achieve such things. They are not mean at all.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Imam C, you have the floor.
Ousman, thank you. And the demonstration ended, and some of them lose their life. Did you call their parents?
Bi ñaxtu bi passé be xalé yi faatu si
when the demonstration ended and some children lose their life, I cannot say that
the hospital
call their parents. The second thing is that We are not working for Yaya Jammeh. We are working for yourself. Because anything that he doesn't like it, you will not get into it. Anything that is bad and is bad and you don't like it, you will not reveal it and you will not say nothing about it. You are working for only for Yaya Jammeh.
Amga Olof Njai dafane.
What the Wolof said.
Wax feñ. Te nit so buge muccu. Nga xam ki ngay liggéeyal lim doon ak nim doon soo yeboone muut nga rëcc.
loolu la kon
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I made a promise to Mr. Badjie that I would provide the name of the witness whose statement I was reading from, and I always do my best to keep my promises. So I would ask the usher to provide him with the name so that he can see it, just as I promised, but that's it. And lastly, just to say that Mr. Badjie had indicated that he would like to make his final statement in Wolof. So just a reminder, because that's something he had requested.
I see him smiling. I hope that helps him with his concluding remarks. Mr. Badjie, if you have concluding remarks to make, please go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners.
He's saying that commissioners,
Deputy Lead Counsel, all the councils and commission members, staff.
And all the other councillors and commissioners.
Nima ko wahe demba Deputy Lead Counsel.
Deputy Lead Counsel.
Maneko suma kaddu pour wahak askan bi.
My statement to the nation.
Ci Wolof la ko buga wax.
I want to say it in Wolof.
Waaye nag maa ngi jéggalu de parce que Jola buy làkk Wolof la.
Well, I'm appealing to you. I'm a Jola who is going to talk in Wolof.
Mun na am du leer.
It might not be very clear.
Waaye dinañ géem liñ ci mun.
But I will try what I can.
maa ngi njëkkee sumay kàddu njaale di yëkkati sumay kàddu njaale.
I'm first of all sending condolences to.
ci waajuri xale yi faatu.
To the parents of the victims, those who died.
di leen jéggalu itam.
I'm also appealing to them for forgiveness.
ci naxar beeg mettit biñ nekkee at yi yëpp.
And all these years they have been living with pain.
waaye di ñaan seen njaboot yi.
I am appealing to them, begging them.
fiñ nekk tey.
Where we are today.
yal na leen yàlla ubbil binti ajana yi kaw.
May the Almighty Allah forgive them and grant them Jannatul Firdaus.
seen waajur yi.
Their parents.
yàlla yokk leen xoli muñ.
May Allah give them hearts to bear.
yokk seen am-am.
May Allah provide them and add them and give them the best of luck.
seen mën-mën.
And what they can do.
may leen jàmm ak xéwal.
May Allah give them peace.
ñi gaañu.
Those who died.
am nañ laago non ñi gaañu ñi gaañu.
Those who are wounded. Those who are wounded.
am nañ laago bu métti.
They have got something very painful.
ñu ngi koy sooxee benn tey.
And still some are still suffering with those pain.
loolu yépp.
All that.
li ko waral.
What caused it.
ak kandeer yi fi yi jàmmaarloog ñoom la.
is what happened to them.
ñu ngi jéggalu si ñooñu itam.
I'm still begging for forgiveness.
di leen masawu coono biñ nekkee at yi yépp.
And all the suffering they've been living with, I am appealing to them for forgiveness.
te ñu xam ne su doon suñu coobare.
Let them know that if it has been our intention,
lii du leen dal.
this will not happen to them.
waaye nag.
But
xew na.
it has happened.
ñu ngi koy rëccu.
And we regret it.
di baalu ñëpp àq nag.
And we are appealing for forgiveness from all of them.
gannaaw loolu.
After that.
yéen a ngi ne seen bàkku bi mooy lii bum fi amati ba abadan.
The slogan is never again.
waaye pour mu ñàkk am.
For us not to have it again.
dañ dee wax léegi-lee si nasaraan.
Sometimes they say this in the English language.
ne our motherland.
Our motherland.
which means ñu ngi tollale suñ réew.
Which means we are putting our nation
ak suñu waajur
and our parents.
loolu lu mata bàyyi xel la.
That is something that we should be mindful of.
rawatina ci ndaw yi.
Much more the youth.
parce que ñu ne ñoom ñooy magi ëllëg.
Because they are the elders of tomorrow.
gis nga ci Gambian bu nekk.
In every Gambian,
toogee.
if the time comes,
gisee réew mi comme sa waajur.
you see the nation as your parent.
di nga ko jox cër bi nga jox sa waajur.
You will respect the nation as you respected your
doo
parents.
musa def dara luy lor sa réew.
And you will never commit anything that will bring suffering into your country.
réew mi.
This country.
lañ am.
This is what we have.
fii lañ juddoo.
We were born here.
fii lañ màggee.
We grew up here.
fii lañ teddee.
We live here.
lépp lu ñu am.
Whatever we have,
réew mee ñu ko jox.
we got it from this nation.
te fonk sa réew.
To love your country
ci jàmm yàlla la bokk.
is part of your religious obligation.
gis nga April 10/11 li xew nii.
April 10/11, what happened?
ci suma gis-gis.
According to how I see it,
li tax mu am.
what caused it to happen?
ñàkka.
Is lack of
respecter loi réew mi la.
Is lack of respect to the laws of the country.
ak it gis sa bopp.
And seeing yourself.
ne man li ma bëgga.
saying that what I want.
moo war a am.
is what should have happened.
waaye duma ko méngaleeg loi réew mi.
But I will not, I will not mix it up with the laws of the country.
ñu ne.
They said.
ay kilifa wax nañ ko de.
Elders said this.
wax ma yan ndaw nga am sa réew.
Tell me what kind of youth you have in your country.
dinaa la wax ëllëg ban réew ngay am.
I will tell you tomorrow what kind of nation you will have.
dañ war a bàyyi suñ xel.
Let's be mindful of.
ñu respecter.
Let's have respect.
institutions yi ñu am ci réew mi.
Let's have respect for the institutions we have in this country.
ñu respecter.
Let's have respect.
ñi nekk ci suñ nguur gi.
For those who are in the government.
ñu respecter.
Let's have respect.
suñ bopp.
Have respect for ourselves.
ak suñuy nawle.
And our neighbors too.
parce que wax nañ ne yonent bi rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Well, it has been said that the holy prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
mus nañ ko laaj.
They once asked him.
ne ko yonent bi rasulullah.
They asked him, the prophet.
ci yow.
You.
lan mooy jullit wala kan mooy jullit.
What is a Muslim and who is a Muslim?
mu ne jullit.
He said a Muslim.
mooy.
is.
ki nga xam ne.
a person whom you know.
mbindaa foo nii.
God created him or her.
muslu nañ.
He has taken care.
si sa làmmeñ.
from what you say.
ak si sa loxo.
and what you do.
maanaam nit.
like a person.
bul fexe nga lor sa nawle.
don't put your neighbor in trouble.
si sa kàddu.
by words.
wala si sa loxo.
or by deed.
lii mooy lii yonante bi gaaxal.
This is what the prophet revealed.
gannaaw loolu.
After that.
gis nga suñ respecté woon loi bi.
If we had respect for the law.
Public Order Act bi wax na ne.
The Public Order Act said.
soo buggee ñaaxtu.
If you want to demonstrate.
na nga apply.
You have to write.
permit pour Inspector General of Police jox la.
Apply for a permit from the Inspector General.
soo apply.
If you apply.
dina la jox.
He will give it to you.
su la joxul.
If he didn't give
dina la
you.
wax dalil yi tax joxu la ko.
He will explain the reasons why he refused to give you the
ba ñuy
permit.
meeting na gars yi yundum suñ apply yoon.
When we met with the guys at Yundum, if they had applied.
te IG bi wax na leen ko.
And IG informed them about it.
dina leen ko doon jox.
He will have given it to them.
boobaa dina leen jox ay takkadeer. yu leen di guide tam.
And that time he will provide guides for them and escort for them.
waaye loolu amut.
But that didn't happen.
lii xew na.
And what happened happened.
ñu ngi koy réccu nag.
Well, we are regretting it now.
takkadeer yi tam.
And those who should have our guards, our army and the police, our security forces.
seen mag lañ seeni doom lañ seeni papa lañ seeni yaay lañ.
They are your fathers, your uncles, your elder brothers, your mothers.
They are working for this nation.
They
have been selected to be police, army, prison officers, and fire servicemen. I used to say that police
civilian bu sol uniform la
is a civilian who is in uniform.
Te kenn si police officers ki testify fii.
And one of the police officers who testified here
wax na ne
said
bañ attaqué Kotu police.
When they attacked the Kotu police station,
gaay daw laxu.
Some ran away and hid themselves.
Dafa dem laxatu musimi uniform am bi.
He or she went and took off his or her uniform.
Musol t-shirt civil génn si seen biir.
And wore a t-shirt, a civilian t-shirt, and came out.
Xale yi moomale ko seen boppa foog ne si ñoom la bokk.
The students added him or her into their group.
So buñ gisee police wala army wala ñeneen ni comme suñuy noon.
When they look at the police or army and take them as enemies,
dañ fi nekk pour kaaraange réew mi.
They are here for the security of the nation.
te kaaraange gi nag.
And for the security of the nation.
mënut a doon pour police rek wala army.
It cannot just be the police or the army.
loolu yitte ku nekk la war a nekk.
That should be the interest of everybody.
réew mi yëpp ñoo bokk kaaraange.
We are all joining into one
parce que
security.
su jàmm amee.
Because if there is peace in the
jàmm la
country,
ñun ñëpp.
it is peace for all of us.
su safaan amee musiba naaru lay.
If trouble comes in the country,
du baax kenn si ñun.
it will not be good for anybody.
duñ si mun a sax jaamu yàlla.
And we cannot even perform our religious obligations.
lenn lu ma seetlu itam.
One thing I've also realized.
mu ngi yoot di ñëw.
It's coming, creeping in.
ñu ne lii bu mu fi amati abadan. never
They
again.
said never again.
waaye ñu ngi dégg ñetti at jot na.
And we've been hearing 3 years has arrived.
te ñoom ñu ngi naan December fu ñu jaar ñu yëngatu.
And they are saying that whatever happens in December, they will come out. Because
président bi ñetti at la waxoon askan bi.
Because the president said 3 years, that's what he told the nation.
dafa war a wàcca.
He should come down.
waaye ndax loolu méngoo na ak suñ sarti réew mi constitution bi.
But has that anything to do with our constitution?
kàddu gi mooy déet.
The word is no.
Constitution bi juróomi at la ñu wax.
The constitution is 5 years.
President bi gaay di dem election 1997 constitution bi déet bi mu fa def loolu lañ sàmm.
The constitution, when they were going to the vote, showing the 5-year term.
bañ ko tànnee itam.
And when he was elected,
bañ koy waatloo sa Ndakaaru si suñ embassy bi.
When he was being sworn in Dakar at the Gambian embassy,
date bi constitution bi wax.
The date that the constitution stipulated, that's what we instituted. When he came back to the country, he went to the stadium. He caught the Al-Quran in his hand. Chief Justice swore him in.
Constitution in 1997.
It was the 1997 Constitution which was in existence, and that same Constitution is what is existing up to date. That's why I said what happened on April 10/11 is because of non-respect between the nation and the law. Let's try to institute and respect the laws of the country.
When we respect the 1997 Constitution, Billahi,
he swore.
We
will not have any other incident like that.
April 10/11.
April 10/11.
Because
the Constitution has clearly stated whatever it is. This is what I wanted to say. Because the country, what does that mean? I don't understand that, Wolof.
You cannot separate or divide a country.
You cannot separate or divide a country. A country is a place where we should all come together.
We should be dialoguing.
We should be dialoguing. That's why we had that. That's why we had the National Assembly in Banjul. Where you know All our districts and wards, they have elected people who are supposed to be at the National Assembly. Whatever is the nation's interest, that's where they discuss it. They call the ministers and ask them what is their stance and what efforts and trials are they doing for the upcountry. Our former president, the late Dawda Kairaba Jawara,
Kerok bañ koy garal ay kaddu sédé ci penchu askan bi.
That day when they were saying things about him at the National Assembly,
Honorable O.J. Jallow ci sédém.
Honorable O.J. Jallow in his testimony,
mu ne bu ñuy form sen parti bi,
he said when they were forming their party,
the Protectorate People's Party, gaay doon ut njiit,
those who were seeking leadership,
ñu dem tànn President Jawara ne moom lañ bugg def njiit.
They decided to choose President Jawara and said that's the man they want to lead them.
Lim leen njëkk a wax mooy,
what he first told them was,
pour ma d'accord pour nekk njiit,
for me to agree to be your leader,
si suñ nguur gi,
in our government,
xeeti réew mi yëpp dañ ci war a gis seen bopp.
all nationals or all tribes of the countries should see themselves in
what
that.
What wisdom.
All parties should be, all members should be part of that party.
Nañ leen bàyyi xaajatloo ci xeet.
Let's stop tribalism.
Daf ñuy lor.
It only brings trouble.
Si Suratul Al-Hujurat.
Suratul Al-Hujurat, that's
aya
verse
fukk ak
of the Quran. The 13th verse.
Suñ borom wax nañu ne.
God, Allah told us that
yéen mbindaafoo nii,
you people, the
maa leen bindee ci ñaari nit, góor ak jigéen.
I created you in two persons,
ma def leen into nations.
I made you to live in countries
ak ay xeet,
in different tribes,
pour ngeen di yëgoo,
so that you can interact,
ngeen di waxtaan,
you can dialogue,
ngeen di diisoo,
you can talk to each other.
lii la ñu Yàlla santa ci
This is what God told us in the Quran. And I think for Gambia here, this is what we should do. Because lack of understanding is not there. The problem is lack of dialogue. The Wolof said, discussing. But before you do that discussion,
talk round the table.
You sit down and together. Each one will speak. Whatever somebody says, you put it on the table. If everybody speaks, whatever you've discussed there, then you look and choose what is beneficent to the nation. You take that. What is not good, you bury that. That's what brought dialogue. As far as the president said he's ready to discuss about the 3 years.
Perhaps we need to conclude because Mr. Badjie, you are going a bit more into political issues.
I'm almost done.
So please,
yes.
Please proceed. Thank you.
What is let's discuss. There is no lack of understanding. Lack of discussion, that's what's well, I am appealing for the words I said here. And I'm appealing for everybody for forgiveness. Please forgive me. That's the nation. Here you are. Here we are. May Allah protect our nation. Bring peace into this nation. And clean our hearts. So that we can understand each other and dialogue and be one nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for those concluding remarks.
Thank you for
we will take a lunch break and come back sharp 3 o'clock because of it should be slightly less than an hour. We have a witness that's ready to start at 3 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Welcome back, everybody. Council, are we ready to continue our proceedings? If we are, please proceed.
Good afternoon. We're ready to proceed, Mr. Chair. Kindly bring in the witness. Thank you.
Thank you.
I, Babukar Jatta. I, Babukar Jatta. Do swear that.
Could you do it again, please? Maybe raise the microphone. Raise the microphone closer to him. We need to hear him swear. Yes, okay. Thank you.
I, Babukar Jatta. I, Babukar Jatta. Do swear that. I'll speak the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God.
You may be seated, sir. Mr. Jatta, welcome back to the TRRC.
Thank you very much.
You are one of the few people who have the privilege of coming for a round two.
And I'll come back again.
Let us make round two a very truthful testimony. Mm-hmm. You know the rules. Mm-hmm. It is an offense to lie under oath in this country. Mm-hmm. It is also an offense to provide false testimony to the TRRC. Okay. Do you understand?
I do.
Remember the slogan, the truth shall set you free.
Roger.
Let that be your guiding principle.
Thank you.
I want a yes and not a Roger.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. And again, I just want to reiterate the importance of giving a disciplined testimony. We just focus on the questions asked, and you answer those questions. You understand?
Yes, please.
You and I have previously met, so obviously no introductions required.
No.
And since you've testified before the commission, there is no need to go over your biographical information in order to establish who you are. We already know who you are. Right. So now let's cut the chase and go straight to the issues. Okay. We want you to talk about two important things, or if I may say, three important things.
Right, yeah.
The most important one is April 10, 11.
Good.
We would give you an opportunity to say something also about the death of Ousman Korosise, just the little bit that you know. And also we want to talk to you a little about the junglers. You understand?
Correct. Yes, please.
Thank you. So now tell us about April 10, 11, 2000, what happened, starting from the day before.
The day before, I had no clue of what was going on, but we got an information from the Secretary to the National Security Council, my permanent secretary, Esakan. He is the permanent secretary to Defense. He alerted me that there will be a meeting for the NSC, National Security Council.
At this stage, what was the composition of the National Security Council?
It's been chaired by the Vice President, or for the President. We have the Inspector General of Police, the DG National Intelligence Agency, myself, and we sometimes co-opt the Finance Minister and Attorney General.
At this stage, what was your position?
My position in the National Security Council is as a Chief of Defense Staff. Let me just clarify one issue here. There are two things going on. I am appointed as Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, not Chief of Defense Staff. But on another letter, I will sit in the National Security Council as Chief of Defense Staff.
Point noted. In any case,
wow.
At both periods, you were head of the Gambia National
Armed
Army.
Forces. Yes,
Gambia
please.
Armed Forces.
Yes, please.
Good. Proceed, please.
So we were all set ready for the meeting, but it did not hold. By 3 a.m. on the 10th.
This would be what day?
On the 10th.
On the 10th,
that was
early
the day of
in
the
the morning?
Yes, 3 a.m.
All right, proceed.
I got a call from the Inspector General of Police that the meeting may not hold.
Who was that person at the time?
Rex King.
Thank you. Just allow me to finish my questions before you start responding.
Okay.
We have to avoid the overlap of speeches. Thank you. Proceed, please.
Was Rex King. He told me that I hope this meeting will hold because I don't think this meeting will hold because the students intend to demonstrate. I said, where? He said, maybe around Serekunda area. I said, I could back you up. I'll use the National Guard. He said, okay.
And what do you mean by that?
That's what I say, if he needs some more men, because it was in the night, I can send, because Fajara Barracks National Guard, I have almost up to close to 50 police officers who were with us during the amalgamation from the defunct TSG.
You wanted to use military personnel to support him,
yes,
correct?
The police who are now military personnel.
That's right.
Then military personnel to support him.
But even at this stage, did you consider the legality of what you are talking about?
Well, we were told that that barracks has to be have another assignment under limited police powers. It never materialized until 2000, after the student demonstration, it was enacted.
So at this stage, it was not made law for the military to participate in intervening on civil strife, on civilian matters?
No.
Then why did you make the undertaking to back him up?
I'm going to back him up. In the event, when the police come, I'll withdraw.
But you knew that this was not a military matter?
No.
You did not at this stage?
And I did not implement it.
Are you sure you did not implement it?
Should he demand, I said I will help.
But what were you going to help on? Was it within the responsibility of the Gambia National Army to interfere in civil strife, in demonstrations?
No.
It's not your mandate, isn't it?
No, it's not our mandate at that time.
Exactly. Why did you undertake to back him up?
In the event, he has no men. You know, it was in the night,
but
early morning.
So you're saying that if the police cannot do it, we, the army, will do it, even though it's not our responsibility?
If he lacks the manpower at that moment.
So that was your position?
Before daybreak.
Okay. Regardless of the law with regards to your mandate?
Yes, please.
All right. But do you realize that, in fact, you are getting yourself in murky waters because you were about to jump into something that was completely outside your authority?
Yes, please.
Proceed, please. So
it did not materialize. But early morning when I was going to work, I decided to pass by the GTTI, Westfield GTTI. I went up to GTTI. I met the police there with some students gathered there. And at the head of the police was Babukar or Modu So.
What was his position in the police force?
I really don't know the rank then. But he testified.
My question is, what was his position?
In the police?
Yeah.
He was he's the head of operations.
Head of operations, you
of
said.
the police. If my
you
memory
said he testified.
Yeah, he testified. He testified here.
Would that be Babukar Sow?
Babukar Sow.
Commissioner for operations.
Then commissioner for operation, yes.
That's the person.
He's the very guy I met at the GTTI.
When did he testify?
Yes, day before yesterday. Yes, day before yesterday. So,
yes,
the bald-headed man.
Yes,
because he testified.
Okay, so now we are clear.
Whether Modu Sow or Babukar Sow.
We now clear the person you're talking
yes,
about.
Please, yes,
all right, proceed, please.
So I dropped from my vehicle because it was getting a little bit messy with the student. But I talked to Sow to say, please let us know when does the need to get to. We have Radio Gambia here. I have my men at Radio Gambia. If you run into trouble.
Did you ask him what he was doing there?
Yes, he said, yes, please. He said that they were to pick up point, if I could remember, for Gamsu. And that I saw them disembarking students. But I was not very sure why they were there. But I know that they were there with students.
Did you speak to him?
I did speak to him.
Did you ask him why he was there?
Yes, he said that the students are not supposed to go to Banjul. If I could fully remember.
Did he say anything about Vice President?
No, I did not ask any. He did not tell me anything concerning the Vice President.
Did he tell you anything about a meeting?
No, I should tell him about the meeting of Gamsu. I know about that one. But I did not tell him about the meeting. I just should tell him.
Did he tell you that there was a meeting to be attended that day?
Babukar Sow?
Yes.
No, I know that I was supposed to attend that meeting.
Okay. All right, proceed, please. And the meeting was with who?
At the Vice President's office, NSC.
Okay. Did the students have anything to do with that meeting?
Yes, I learned that they are supposed to be there. They should be at the Vice President's office to be heard.
Who was
the Gamsu student?
Who was to take them there?
Pardon me?
Who was to take them there?
I don't know that one.
You don't know?
Yes.
Mr. Jata, do you recall giving a statement?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall giving a statement to the investigators?
Okay.
Do you recall that? Do you recall giving a statement?
Yes.
And if you see that statement again, you would be able to recognize it.
Okay,
correct?
Let me see.
Yes. Could you pass him a copy? And okay, get out. We see it to be passed the same copy today.
Where, Falla? Where is it?
Do you
demonstration? Huh?
Do you see the signature? Take a look at the signature page.
Yes.
It's towards the end of the statement. Okay. Look at the signature page.
That's my signature.
Okay.
I signed.
And you recognize this statement as yours,
yes,
correct?
Yes.
Could you kindly pass it on to the chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, perhaps I'll just at this stage request to put in the statement as evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it should be Exhibit 86, 0086. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Could you pass the statement to Mr. Jata?
I have
In fact, you have your own copy.
Yes,
Bring that one to me. Thank you very much, Mr. Jata. Could you take a look at paragraph 4?
Mm-hmm.
But on the next page,
okay,
you would see that you wrote that he said to me that going by arrangements with the Gamsu executive, GTTI, was supposed to be the picking point of the students to the office of the Vice President, H.E. Aissatunjai Sedi.
Yes.
Do you remember saying that to the investigators?
Yes.
But I just asked you the purpose, whether Mr. Sow told you what he was doing there. You said no. Did you forget?
Yes. This time we are not talking. I may refer to the students. but not the Gamsu students. You know, there are two things. The executive was to be picked at the GTTI.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Maybe this was a misunderstanding.
All right.
My question was, did he tell you why he was there? In your statement, you said he told you that they were there to pick up the students.
Sorry, Gamsu students.
Yes.
Executive, Gamsu executive.
Yes, but those are students.
I say students.
Yes.
No, but I should be specific.
Okay. My question was really more on what he said about the reason for him being there. But proceed with your testimony.
Okay. So I said to him again, today is examination day. What are you going to do with this? Because some of these students may be going to exams. But there was no reaction. I said, that's it. I went to the back. This is from the GTTI, and at the GTTI, I moved back to Joshua.
Did the commissioner say anything about what the students intended to do?
No, he did not tell me.
Did you hear anybody say anything about a demonstration?
That they are going to demonstrate. I was told by the Inspector General of Police.
But when you were
at GTTI,
did the commissioner say anything about demonstration?
No, he did not tell me. But I know that this was the information we got.
Mr. Jatta, did you read your statement today?
I should think so.
You read it and then you signed it, correct? All right, and in fact, we also discussed it earlier.
Yes, please.
But if you look at the same paragraph I directed your mind to, you did say the commissioner further buttressed that there were possibilities that the students would go on a demonstration.
At the ground, in the country?
Yes.
Yes.
But I just asked you now whether he said anything about a demonstration.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes,
he talked to me. He also emphasized that the student planned to go on a demonstration.
That's right. Then I advise you that you listen to the questions carefully.
Okay.
Because if you do not answer properly, it may appear that you do not want to be truthful when it is just perhaps a misunderstanding of the question. All right?
Yes,
so listen to the question carefully before you go to answer. So from your statement, what you have here, he told you that was the picking point for the Gamsu executive to go to the vice president.
Yes, please.
He further said that, but it looks like that the students are going to demonstrate.
Yes.
That is what is contained in your statement.
Yes, please.
Is that the truth?
That's the thing.
Proceed, please.
Okay. So I moved back while my, my orderly got my vehicle across to the other end of Joshua, GTTI, towards Banjul. I stood there for some time. There, I saw the Secretary of State, Mr. Ousman Badjie. He came and he dropped right in front with where Shaw was. Commissioner.
What time of the day
in the
was
morning.
this? What time? At around what time in the morning?
Before, I think before 8 o'clock. I should think so, around 8 or after, just after 8, I should, that early morning.
Proceed, please.
But I saw them talking, but I don't know what they were saying. So I stood there.
Did you join them?
No, I didn't join them. I was at the end.
Okay, proceed.
I stood down there for a while. Then all of a sudden, it didn't take long. The police started firing tear gas.
You were there?
Yes.
When you saw the police started firing tear gas?
The tear gas, yes, I was there.
At this stage, what was the comportment of the students before the first tear gas canister was fired?
They were relaxed. They had been dropped from vehicles. But could it be they themselves? I saw them, some were dropping, but some were passing.
What was their comportment?
They did not take, they are just very calm down there.
Peaceful?
Very peaceful.
Did they throw stones at anybody?
No.
Did they provoke anybody?
I did not see them provoking the situation.
Were you surprised when you saw tear gas canisters flying into the group of students?
So I don't know what could be the cause of that, but it in fact affected us. The breeze was coming from TTIN.
Did the students do anything that warranted tear gas to be thrown at them at this stage?
I don't think so.
Did you see anything that would warrant it?
I was not at the front line there, but I don't see anything that warranted to be fired, to be thrown to them.
What came to your mind when you saw tear gas canisters being fired at the students?
I knew that in the front there could be a problem. Because the minister was also there, the Secretary of State was there too. But just because the gas was coming this way, I decided to leave the place.
Proceed.
Okay. So I left for Banjul. I went to the headquarters.
Let me clarify this again. Which minister was present there?
Secretary of State Ousman Badjie.
For which ministry?
Interior, for the Department of State for the Interior.
Proceed, please.
So I left the place on my way to Banjul. So as I reached at the Radio Gambia Johnson, where Radio Gambia Johnson connects to Banjul Highway, I slowed down. I saw some vehicles coming from that end. As I reached at the Cape Point Road also, I saw other vehicles coming. So sometimes I wonder, why should one place be blocked, two other places are not blocked? So, but I didn't take it seriously. I went up to Denton Bridge. I saw that everybody is passing smoothly. I went straight to the office. When I reached at the office, I called my man, that is the commanding officers. I said, there is a planned demonstration going on, maybe from my own explanation. I said, today the police and the students may run into riot. If you have anybody coming from Banjul, avoid that area. I called Yundum. I called the camp commandant. He's also double in Yundum. I called Bakau.
Could you tell us the names of those officers you spoke to?
Okay. At one infantry battalion, you have Captain Vincent Jata. He's the commanding officer. There is a difference between CO and OC.
Commanding officer and officer commanding. Yes.
Below battalions are officer commanding. Company commanders are officer commanding. Platoon commanders are officer commanding. But battalion commanders are commanding officers.
Yes, Mr. Jata. Thanks so much for clarifying that important point.
Okay. Then at Farafenye, you have Captain Babakar Keita.
And he too is officer commanding.
He's CEO.
Commanding officer. Because he commands a battalion.
Yes.
Was that a battalion in Farafenye? A battalion in numbers or a battalion in name?
Battalion minus.
Battalion in name, isn't it?
Yes. Okay. We have very few people. And I call Fajara also. I have Captain Ibu Jallo, Cherno Jallo. I called the State House. That was Ousman Sonko. Yes. Then I called the Navy.
And Ousman Sonko?
Yes.
Which unit was he heading
State Guard Commander. If my memory serves me, at that point, he was the State Guard Commander.
At this stage, let's try to identify all those units that were under your command as Army Chief of Staff or Chief of Defense Staff.
Okay. Let's talk first about my own headquarters. I have the support components element, we call it Gambia Armed Forces Headquarter Camp. GAF HQ.
Okay, HQ.
Camp.
HQ camp.
Yes. These are military police.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Just tell us the various units.
They are commanded by a camp commandant.
Okay.
That was then Captain Kante, Mamadou Kante.
Okay.
But he is in Yundum. But others, most cases, may come through base and if it comes to operation.
You have HQ camp?
Yes. I have one infantry battalion. That's Yundum. 2BN.
2BN?
Farafenye.
That's Farafenye?
Yes. National Guard.
National Guard?
Fajara. The State Guard is under the National Guard.
Okay. So National Guard, you have State Guards also?
Yes, as part of them.
Okay.
Then I have the Navy, MB SAR. Those days we have MB SAR.
And then you have
sometimes
Navy.
Asan SAR also came in at one time, but by 2000, if my memory serves me right, it should be Mahmoud B SAR.
Okay. So that's the light skin SAR as opposed to the dark skin SAR?
Yes.
Okay, good. So
no. The light skin SAR is MB SAR.
Yes.
The dark skin is Hassan SAR.
Yes.
Yes.
So, so now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entities.
Okay.
Under your authority.
But don't count State Guard.
HQ camp.
Okay. 1.
1BN.
1BN.
2BN Farafenye.
That's right.
National Guards, including the State Guards, and the Navy.
You got it.
Good. And you had effective command and control over these forces.
Yes.
That's your testimony.
Except the State Guard. There is a parity. I just want to explain something. Not that they are not part of us. We control the men and the weapons. But the logistics, like the feeding, transport, everything is Secretary General.
Isn't that a logistical issue? An arrangement, a convenient arrangement because they are based in State House. Isn't it just more reasonable or more convenient for their food to come from State House instead of from Yundum Barracks or from Fajara Barracks?
They are detached. We call them detached element.
Are the personnel detached?
Yes, once they're with the State Guard, we have less to do with them.
No. Are the personnel detached?
The State Guard is a detached component.
You control the men.
Yes.
You control their weapons.
Weapons.
You control their uniforms.
Correct.
You control their movements.
No.
Who controls their movements?
As a State Guard commander.
Who controls the movement of the State Guard commander?
On a routine basis. Okay. It comes to the unit, to National Guard. But we have no control when we have to say, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Is that clear?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not. Who controls the State Guard commander? Who gives him his orders?
From the State House, from the President.
Was that the arrangement?
That is the arrangement.
So you did not have any authority over the State Guard commander?
No.
That's your testimony, Babukar?
Yes.
We would hear other people who have occupied your position before?
Administratively, no. Sorry, tactically, no. Administratively, yes. Because when they need more men, they'll come to GNG and take them to State House. When they have to post people out of the State House, they go to the GNG. But morning routine, where they post their men, where they head to, no.
Of course. You being the army commander, you would not descend to the fray by telling the unit commanders who to post where.
Yes.
You don't do that.
No.
And equally, you would not do it with the commander of the State Guards.
No.
Exactly. So, but functionally, did you have command and control over the State Guards commander?
Yes.
You have command and control over the State Guard commander?
Yes.
That's your